Meeting to order. This is the January 13th, 2021 meeting of the Lowell Conservation Commission. We have an order of business here that starts with continued business, which is an enforcement order given to Dual State Investments, and the property location is 25 Clifton Street. The concern was fill and storage of construction materials within the 100-year floodplain. We've since been told that they plan a construction of a house on the lot, which was split from another lot, and we were concerned with the floodplain line where that actually fell, and you know, the fill that was apparently spilling into the floodplain area, because the location of the house is about the only area where the floodplain isn't. So is there anyone here tonight for this particular project?
Evening, Madam Chair. Kenneth Lanier, Cornerstone. How are you?
Ken, is there something new? We haven't received any new documents that I could see on this particular project.
Well, we provided pretty much all of the FEMA modification to the map approvals prior to the last meeting. So I was hoping you guys are going to have an opportunity to review that. And in addition, as I stated at the last hearing, albeit it was, you know, I was able to get out there today, I staked the 104 contour line on the property, and ultimately my determination, again, I didn't do the original work. That work was done by Leo White and Ron Close, so I'm trying to pick up their work, and ultimately my determination of what was done out there, I believe that there is an area of approximately 186 square feet and no deeper than 2 inches of material that did encroach into that 104 floodplain area. So what I'd like to do is if the commission is all right with, is just given the opportunity to put together a plan that shows that area to be removed, and then obviously loamed and seeded back to the elevation. But again, I feel like this is a very small area that was extended into this floodplain zone. I did stake the line so that if the commission had a chance to drive by before the meeting today, they could have seen that area. I do have a ton of pictures, but I found out as well that Fran wasn't in. I didn't know who to send the pictures to. I spoke with Eric. He said probably just converse with the commission tonight and we can work on going over the pictures and a remediation plan over the next few weeks.
Okay, we probably would like to take a look at that in person, I'm thinking. At least I would.
Absolutely. I mean, if you guys would like to schedule up a site walk, I'd be glad to meet you folks out there. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So is the 2-inch deep fill, is that also spreading over the area that's not in the floodplain?
Yes, ma'am. So what it is they brought fill in to where I guess the home location was going to be. I would assume that at the time the contractor, kind of using his own laser level or something to that effect, tried to anticipate where the 104 contour was. And he did, in my opinion, a pretty decent job. But again, like I said, I think he was short, you know, 186 square feet in area, which, you know, to give you guys a sense of that size, it's like one parking space is about 200 square feet. So this is about 186 square feet spread across an area of about 60 feet. And the maximum depth that I found of elevation of soil that was extended into that area was 2 inches. So again, I mean, as far as volume goes, it's probably less than, you know, 100 cubic feet of material. It's very, you know, 2 inches down to 0 inches. It's almost like just the very end of the fill feathering into the grass. But again, I mean, it definitely did encroach. You folks were 100% correct. So I spoke with the client and we're willing to pull out that 2 inches of 186 square feet of material. I did begin a plan, but I As I told you folks before, I wanted to get it staked out for you so that you could see it. And then we can come up with a remediation plan just to quickly get that taken care of before any new snow flies.
I'm just curious as to why the fill was brought in the first place, if where the house is going is out of the
So
flood.
I'm not sure that if it was Phil brought in or when they did the work in the street, Madam Chair. I think that when they were digging that material out to put water and sewer at both this lot at 19 Clifton and at 25 Clifton, I think that material was just placed on the property. And I believe it just got spread around. It wasn't actual fill brought to the property, Madam Chair. It was just leftover work from the abutting parcel and the street work that was done for the utilities.
Okay, and this material loose enough to be removed in the near future, or is it something?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a little bit frozen, but it's only a couple inches, Madam Chair. So I even told the client today, I mean, he could get over there with a couple of guys and a couple spade shovels and he could pull that out of there probably within an hour.
Mhm.
I don't even believe it would take a machine to take it out of there, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Did
So
any of the members get a chance to go by and see that stake line at all?
I didn't. So how did you find the line? Did you measure like laterally, or did you
Well, if you looked in the package that I provided prior to the last meeting, that was the FEMA floodplain. They call it a LOMA, which is a letter of map amendment. And that work was done by Ron Close and Leo White. And there's actual bearings and distances on the floodplain line, elevation 104. And that was included in the package. And I was able to locate that line on the plan. Now, I also went a little bit further than that, and I located the 104 elevation line on NAVD 88 based off of the sewer datum from the city of Lowell. And I actually got my line was inside of their line. So if you use my topography line of 104, it's only like 12 square feet that they got into the floodplain. But with Ron and Leo's line, it's about 186 square feet. So it's right in there, pretty darn close. I'm comfortable with their line. I'm comfortable with my line. And again, I feel like it was, I don't want to call it minuscule, but it's a very small amount of floodplain intrusion. It's no deeper than 2 inches. And if you were to go out there and you see it, you'll understand that it's more of just kind of like an overlay that went 3 feet beyond the line than it should have.
Yeah. Now, when I saw the outline of the foundation for the proposed house,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't seem to have much space for off-street parking or anything else. It's right up against the floodplain line.
Yes, I do see that, Madam Chair. So the interesting thing about floodplain is you can still do work in the floodplain. Obviously, the applicant would have to come in before the commission. We'd have to do an engineered plan to obviously show a one-to-one replication or I'm sorry, compensation for any floodplain that is filled. I haven't moved forward with this client to figure out the whole proposed design as of yet, but that is something that we will more than likely be coming in front of the commission for when that is prepared and ready to go. But yes, I agree with you, Madam Chair. I would think it'd be awfully difficult to construct that house without some intrusion into the floodplain. But again, I think that's allowed under the zoning. It does require, I think, a special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals. But when we got to that next step, we would absolutely do the necessary filings to obtain a building permit for a single family home.
So would that be a notice of intent that you're planning?
Yes, ma'am. It would have to be a notice of intent to you folks. And again, if there is any work that would be proposed in the floodplain, it would have to be I'm not sure, don't quote me, it's either a special permit to the planning board or a special permit to the zoning board for work in a floodplain under that FPOD overlay district, but I can't recall exactly which board it is.
So we're interested in taking care of the enforcement order at this point. When
Yes,
is
ma'am.
construction planned?
I believe that the plan is to start this year. So, barring any snow that might be coming this year, if the weather stays nice, I would presume that's something that he could be able to, obviously with the completed permits, get out there somewhere towards the end of April, beginning of May.
So my idea is, restore the floodplain by removing any fill.
Yes,
and,
ma'am.
and, ensure that construction doesn't encroach upon that a second time.
Yes, ma'am. I would 100% agree. And again, like I stated, if by chance, and again, I haven't worked with the client as far as determining the proposed house and how it's going to sit. And I obviously know that there was a plan provided in the FEMA LOMA approval. That might be the house, I'm not sure. But again, our goal here is similar to yours. Clear up the enforcement order. Our apologies for any work that did get done without the appropriate permits, and then to come back before you with the appropriate permit applications for the work that'll be done in the future.
Mhm. Do we have questions from the board?
Yeah,
Bill?
just to, sure, I'm not on mute. All right. Ken, just a quick question. Would you say it was about 100 square feet? What was the volume? How many cubic feet?
Yep, so it was 186 square feet, and it was maximum depth was only 2 inches. So if we can do that math, let's see, 2 divided by 12
31
times 186. So yeah, only 31 cubic feet, sir.
So basically that's a cubic yard, right?
Yes, yep, 1 cubic yard.
So basically a whale full is what you're saying.
Yes, sir. I
Right.
would agree. I mean, it's very, and I'm not trying to make light of it,
No,
but it's
I
very
mean,
minimal. It's like, I hate to use the word minute, because obviously it is an infraction, but it's very small.
that's not where I'm going. I mean, I get it. I mean, you've been before this commission before, and you know that like there are certain projects, particularly in very sensitive areas where, we're going layer by layer. So, I mean, I'm
Yes,
not trying to
absolutely.
minimize. It is what it is, but I'm just trying to put the encroachment into context. And what we're talking about is a wheelbarrow full. And my sense is if you were to file a notice of intent, you're going to try and find within the footprint of the proposed project areas to compensate for that wheelbarrow full of material.
Absolutely, yeah. And like I said, I think you could go out there with 2 guys and 2 spade shovels and
Yep.
literally move that dirt off the floodplain area in less than probably 30 minutes. You know
Yep.
what I mean? If it's not frozen, because I did have a little bit of a struggle getting some of the stakes in the ground. The funny part is the regular earth that hadn't been touched was not frozen, but the fill was frozen. So the stakes that I struggled to get in were in fact in the fill. But I think, we went at it with a pry bar. I mean, you can get it up because it's only about an inch and a half thick for kind of frost in the fill. So, I mean, we'd be very willing to move that out of the way for you folks, but I kind of wish you guys could see it. And then you'd understand where I'm coming from as far as the small amount. Because some of it is it's hard to determine whether the grass was just taken off of what was there when the machines were moving around. It wasn't necessarily fill dipping into the floodplain zone.
No, I'm just trying to understand the context of the encroachment. So that helps. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Anyone else from the commission? I think we have some abutters here. Would any abutters or concerned persons like to say anything concerning this? Yes, Mr. Roy?
Yes, sorry. Is the mic on?
I think so.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to stipulate that you had a cease and desist and he filled in over a foot. I don't care where it is. It was a cease and desist and he still filled in that property. Some of it did go into the flood zone area. And when we called originally, the flood zone area was shown differently than what this new certificate that they published shows. So number one, he was lying all the time to all of you. And I know this Ken just started on with him, but he told us at the last meeting, he did not fill in, and he did. It is not just from when the utilities work was done. They had over 5 truckloads of dirt that was going in there. The trucks dumped it, the trucks left, and then the trucks came back full again and dumped again. So it's not true that it was just the soil that came from when the utility company came in a few weeks ago to put the pipes in. And number two, isn't there supposed to be a setback from the 100 year the line? We're not supposed to build up on top of it. And I believe I've been on a number of meetings with you, and you've always stipulated that they have to have a setback. How can you put a house right on the line and not have a setback?
Madam Chair, I can address that if you'd like.
Go ahead.
Ma'am, how are you? Ken Lanian. Thank you for putting the call on. I appreciate it. This particular line is a FEMA floodplain line, so it's a little bit different than what you might have heard in some of the other meetings where they could have been dealing with a bordering vegetated wetland line. So the bordering vegetated wetland line that most of the projects have to come before conservation and address does come with a 100-foot buffer associated with that resource area. In this particular case, the FEMA 100-year floodplain line does not have a buffer associated it. It's a solid line at a specific elevation. Everything that's under that elevation is the purview of the commission, and everything that's above and outside of that elevation is allowed by right. Okay. So it's just a little bit different. I know it gets confusing, but hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of why there is no buffer zone with this particular line.
So if I'm correct now, when you come back in another month to put a driveway in that 23.5 foot area from my property line to that house, you're going to argue that you can put that on top of the land.
If I was in fact going to put a driveway there, ma'am, and I'm not sure if we are, again, I haven't kind of gone over that part with the client yet. I've only gotten involved to, I guess, address this particular enforcement order. But let me explain to you real quick. You are allowed to do construction in a floodplain in the state of Massachusetts and the city of Lowell. The rule states that any work that's done within the floodplain that does by chance fill floodplain has to be compensated for in a 1 cubic foot per 1 cubic foot amount. So if in fact, and this is a theoretical, I guess, description, if I wanted to come and put a driveway on that 23.5 foot area and it raised the land by 1 foot, then somewhere else on the property, I would have to lower the land by 1 foot so that the total amount of floodplain compensation on the land was exactly the same amount as it is today without any disturbance. Does that make sense?
It does, except when you fill that in, my property is then going to get flooded. Do you realize that whole area right there that you have marked as floodplain? You can't drive on that. You can't do anything. If you go look at the backside, you'll see where they had a truck that tried to cross over there and they had to pull it out. It got stuck in the wheels halfway deep into the dirt.
Yes, ma'am. I
all the time.
I absolutely saw that. And it isn't the intention of anyone, I don't think, to add any water onto your property. So ultimately, it's my job, I guess, as the engineer, that if in fact there is some sort of work done in that floodplain, that any runoff associated with it gets treated on this particular property, and any compensation that's required from any fill work would have to meet certain regulations of the Wetlands Protection Act and the City of Lowell. And I would have to certify to the fact that A, the design worked and met those requirements. But in addition, because we will have to come before this commission again, ma'am, I'll also have to do an as-built that identifies that when they're done construction, everything that they did met the requirements in the design plan. So there's a little bit of a catch-all there, because should they not do that and I don't certify it, then they would not be able to get their occupancy permit.
I got a question, Louisa. Mr. Lanier, your client, have they filed an application with the planning and zoning board to build the home yet?
No, ma'am. I'm sorry. No, sir. They have not.
The only reason I mention that,
Mhm.
Ms. Roy, is that obviously, aside from our requirements, there are certain setback requirements under zoning, to prevent houses being built too close to one another outside of the jurisdiction of this commission. But the applicant would have to adhere to those setback requirements from the street and setback requirements from the property line. So those are things that would need to be adhered to do that. You may want to look at, should this project proceed ahead.
Yeah, I mean, because the drop from the street to that 23.5 foot area is probably closer to 1.5 to 2 feet. And that would have to be filled in, which would put all that up against my fence, and I would end up getting water.
And again, ma'am, I don't dispute that one bit. And it would be my job to make sure that you didn't. So when that time comes, I will ensure you that that is what would happen, as long as I'm still involved.
As far as I can see, when that time comes, nobody's around and nobody takes blame for it. And then we get stuck having to take care of it. And this isn't the first property that he's done this to. And we got another project going on across the street, which he's going to try and do the same thing. So I'm sorry to be bitter about this, but this gentleman has come into this area and has lied to every single one of our neighbors. And none of us are happy right now because he tells you one thing and he tells us something else. As far as following the law, he's already told us he doesn't give, I won't say the word, about what this committee has to say or even what the planning board has to say. He's building what he wants to build, how he wants to build it. So I'm just putting you on notice. That's what he's telling us. And what I've seen so far in 9 months is right on target.
I think you should be a little more confident in the Conservation Commission. We've done a lot of work in your neighborhood. We've had a lot of projects come before us, and we're very aware of the flooding situation out there. There's certain areas of the city that really get the brunt of flooding every time it comes around, and certainly your neighborhood is one of them.
Right.
And we intend to be very careful with this project and any other project that is in that Billerica Street area. We're pretty aware of how things go out there as far as flooding.
I appreciate that. And I didn't mean to imply that you would deliberately do anything, but unfortunately, when they go and they fill in, and not until one of us calls your office to say there's a problem, they get away with it.
Right. Well, it is a cumulative problem as well. I would admit that. And, which is going to be the one more house that breaks the camel's back sometimes, you wonder. So,
Louisa, may I ask, ma'am, were you able to see the property today with the I think I might actually seen you today while I was out there. Did you?
no, I didn't actually know you had the stakes up.
Okay.
I thought of going out there, but
Okay.
I didn't.
And missed the neighbor. Were you able to see the staking that was completed out there?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so you understand what I'm talking about, that line where they definitely encroached over that line of the stakes. So you're 100% accurate. I don't think it was a gross infraction of the law, but it was an infraction. And with me on board, I will ensure that the applicant, owner, client, whatever he is, will make it correct. I won't let him get away with doing something that doesn't meet the law.
Well, my interpretation of gross infraction is if they tell you cease and desist and not to do something, and you deliberately go and do it, that's an infraction.
I don't disagree with you, ma'am. I don't disagree. I'm sorry, I wasn't really involved at that part. I wasn't involved until after they got to this meeting status. So, what was done in the past was done in the past, but I can assure you now that I'm involved, the work that will be done correctly. It will adhere to the regulations. And I will ensure you that whatever I do in there for any type of grading or driveways or whatever that would become of the proposal will not add any additional water to your property unless it's treated on this property first. Okay?
I'd like you to put the measurement of how deep that property is as far as from the street so that we know when they start filling it in, how much fill they've actually put it into that property.
Yes, ma'am. I have the topography plan completed. I just literally didn't get a chance to give it to the commission because one of their folks in the office isn't in. So my email, I don't think, got to anybody. So at the next meeting, these folks will have the new updated topography plan plus the overlay of the FEMA map change so that they can see how the property sits in with the topography.
Okay, that's one thing that I was curious about was the topography. I was hoping that was going to be submitted. So we do have the enforcement order still in place. It sounds like we have a field trip we need to take individually or as a commission to check that out probably after we get the topography plot as well. And therefore, I'm suggesting that maybe this enforcement be not be lifted tonight, as the earth hasn't been moved yet anyway. But I think we have some work to do to go and check this out ourselves, and then perhaps at the next meeting, we'll have a different perspective as far as going forward. Do you have any idea, Ms. Solania, when the notice of intent might be produced?
Well, I don't off the top of my head. I don't, and it's up to you folks. I don't truly believe that a notice of intent is required to clear up this enforcement order because it's, such a small area, and I feel like, a wheelbarrow full can be taken out without needing to file an NOI.
It wasn't suggested that, suggesting that we.
Yeah,
need-
no, that's fine. And I do anticipate filing an NOI, Madam Chair. I don't know what the plan is with the building plans. I know those are being worked on. So I would err on the side of, maybe we schedule a site walk out there so everybody can involved and even the neighbors. I can have the topography plan on site. We can identify where that infraction was and agree at that site meeting, to allow the applicant to get over there with a couple of shovels and get that dirt out of the way, just in case there is a flooding event.
Okay, I'm all for that. We'll maybe take a poll and see when people are available. Or if they want to go out singly, that's fine too. So I'm
If I may.
suggesting that we continue this project with the enforcement order in place.
I'd make a suggestion before a motion that we allow the applicant to remove any fill from inside of the staked line while we continue the motion, so that he's outside of the violation. And once we have the plan at the next meeting, we can review it. And if we feel that the line was staked appropriately, then he is satisfied of any responsibility as far as this enforcement order. Any thoughts?
Anyone else?
Are you suggesting that, assuming that their line is accurate, they just remove the fill from within that boundary that's infracting into the flood zone, and then, we go out, do our visit, if we confirm that footprint is accurate, they're done, and then we rescind the enforcement order. If not, they have additional work that they would need to do before we would rescind the order. Is that what you're suggesting?
It is.
Yep, I think that makes sense.
I think particularly if it's handwork, we shouldn't have any concern that there's going to be over movement of fill or anything of that type.
So in that case, we'd suggest to the applicant that they remove anything inside the flood zone as handwork. And I will make a motion to continue this to the next meeting so that we have time to review the additional documentation to be provided by the engineer.
Okay, Ms. Solania, would that be a good time for you, our next meeting, or would you need longer than that?
Oh, no, Madam Chair, that'd be excellent. I appreciate it. I'll work with the client to have that area removed. I'll be on site while they do it. And I will clean up the topography plan and send it over to you as well. The only item that will kind of be left over is with the weather and the temperature where it's at. Once we dig that dirt out, it's just going to look like dirt until the spring. There's not much we can do for loam and seed,
All right.
And with that understanding, I'll just second the motion that Brad made.
Okay, motion made and seconded to allow the property owner to remove the fill within the floodplain that Mr. Lania has designated, and we will attempt, all of us singly or as a group, to take a look at that before our next meeting. Do we have a vote on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Lania, for coming in and explaining what's going on out there. We appreciate your input.
Excellent. Absolutely, Madam Chair. Thank you for working with us on this. And again, our apologies. And I will ensure that I get you that plan well in time before the next meeting so we all can have an educated look at what's going on out there. All right.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right. Have a great evening. Thank you.
You as well. Good night.
Take care.
Next on our agenda is a request for determination of applicability put in by Daniel Dean at 124 Totman Street. We discussed this at a prior meeting, and I saw Mr. Dean. There he is. Mr. Dean is in an update. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Upon our last meeting, I done multiple conversations with Mike Struhl from the Stormwater Department of the City of Lowell. I made a plan up. I drew up a plan. If you'd like, I could share it with you and show you exactly what Mike approved of for the runoff from my driveway.
I'd like to see a plan shared, and you can walk us through it if you don't mind,
Yeah.
unless anyone has any objections.
No?
Commissioners, this is also a plan I emailed to you probably around 6:30. You want to pull it up on your own computers.
Okay. So here is my home. This is the driveway that I'm planning to recover. And it comes back 90 feet and then it angles off for another 60 feet. And it's 50 feet across. There's going to be a 3-foot trench by 3 feet deep, filled with 3/4 inch stone along the back, and also another 3-foot by 3-foot trench filled with 3/4 inch stone along the side. The X's indicate there's going to be boulders there, so there's not going to be any motor vehicle traffic on the trenches. And basically, it's going to allow the runoff to come into the trench and filter naturally through the ground into the swampland. Up near the front, near the house, I have a 3-foot offset from the house. And on the right side of the property line, there's going to be another 3-foot setback away from the property line. And down in the back is going to be a grass area for vegetation, plants and whatnot. It's going to be recovered with recycled asphalt. It's not going to be compacted. The driveway is only used up in the front part of the driveway, really. The only time I access the back part is when I'm going into my garage to do whatever I need to do in my garage, and that's it. I'm not parking or storing any vehicles. I have a snowmobile trailer that I park out in the back of the property, and that's all I have out there. And that's pretty much my proposal of what I plan to do with the property. And I spoke to Mike several times. I revised my plan several times. He went in front of the storm water board and proposed it, and they discussed it thoroughly. And he told me that this is what I need to do.
Okay, so what is the distance between that row of boulders in the rear property line?
They're
And-
gonna be they'll
and
be
where-
spaced, the boulders will be spaced 5 feet apart from one another. So no motor vehicles can travel in between them.
What I was wondering is the space between the boulders and the edge of the wetland. How much distance is there?
There's gonna be at least 4 feet before I put the trench in. And then there'll be 3 foot of trench. So the boulders will be about 8 feet from from the edge of the, where it drops off to the wetlands. There'll be 8 feet of property that's not being used right there.
Okay. And is all of this property something that you anticipate using? Or are you just kind of overbuilding here?
Well, it's not, I need to be able to use this access to turn my vehicles around to get them into my garage. And if need be, I can park on it if need be. But I've never used this area to park vehicles. I've only used the area up from the backside of my house to the roadway for parking vehicles. This is mainly just access, so I have room to turn around and maneuver anything I need to maneuver into my garage.
So how is this material that you propose to use, how is that going to be prevented from eroding? It's a fairly loose material, particularly when you plow the snow, for instance. Is that going to move around? And
Mainly, I don't plow. I have a snow blower. So, I mean, I don't think it's gonna really move around much.
so how would this work be accomplished? Is this going to be, something you do on your own, or is this going to be constructed by a contractor?
This will be done on my own.
Mhm. It would seem that 3 feet deep is a little bit deeper than necessary in my mind, but
Well, that's, I had proposed a 2 foot by 2 foot trench. And after speaking with Mike and stuff, he suggested that I went 3 foot by 3 foot, just in case that there is any spill off of material.
and so the boulders would be put on top of the crushed rock. Is that right?
No, it would be put on the asphalt in front of the crushed rock. I do not want anything to prevent the rock from doing its job, filtering the water back into the ground.
Okay, so the latest report we did receive, the latest set of comments from the stormwater team was the opinion that perhaps a notice of intent might be needed on this because of the proximity to the wetland area. Now, you say you've been speaking to somebody on that team?
Yes, I've been speaking to Michael Struhl.
Mm-hmm. I think he may be the one that signed the letter that was sent to us.
If I can interject, Christine forwarded around today this plan that we're seeing in front of us with a letter from Mike that supports this design.
Okay, I didn't see that letter myself. Yeah.
Louise, it came just before the meeting at like 6:30, so I'm not surprised.
All right, so so this is more in line with what I had in mind as far as protecting the wetland from erosion and from encroachment by vehicles and perhaps oil spills and things like that. What do we think, commissioners?
Bill, you're on mute.
I'm thinking in light of what we heard tonight, the email we just got from Christine, and the fact that this kind of aligns with our thinking, Luis, so I'd be one to offer to issue a -3 determination in support of this project.
My only comment would be that I would like to see a Merathi wrap, some kind of filter fabric around the stone in this trench. So you'd create your 3x3 trench, and then you'd layer it with a filter fabric prior to the stone placement, and that basically keeps any soils from entering that trench and filling the voids that will be used to hold the water between the stones in that trench.
Now, Brandon, when you're talking about filtering it, are you talking about putting the filter on top of the 3/4 inch stone, or?
No,
At the
so
bo-
you'd dig your trench, your 3x3 trench,
Yeah,
and then you'd lay in the black filter fabric into that trench, and then you would place the rock on it, and so it would surround it on 3 sides.
okay,
And then it would have an open top.
okay,
So the purpose there is that, because there is groundwater which runs horizontally and can even, percolate up. In this case, maybe I don't know if it would make it. It seems to be a pretty high area,
yeah,
but just the same, right? You have groundwater. Groundwater makes soil move, especially into voids. And there are the intention of this design of this trench is that there are voids between the rocks of equal size, so that water can be stored in that trench and not in the wetlands, and then
yeah,
be collected and then treat itself by infiltrating downwards as the ground permits it to infiltrate. So we just want to make sure that there's no soils that enter those rocks, and you can do that by installing this filter fabric on the bottom and sides of the trench.
okay.
Yeah.
With the problem with putting it on the bottom in the sides of the trench, I was talking to Mike about this from the water department, and he was letting me know that that's a fabric that's gonna have to be replaced after so long, and it could clog. So, I mean,
Any type of infiltration trench is going to require some amount of maintenance. I think
right,
that fabric, it is actually preventative of more maintenance. Now, you're going to have to be out probably every 3 years or so, depending upon your driveway type.
right. Now,
Out.
when I was speaking with Mike, instead of putting it down at the bottom of the trench and on the sides of the trench, we were talking about putting a layer across the top of the trench, about 6 inches down, with a layer of stone on top of that. That way I don't have to pull all that cubic yardage of stone out every 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, then you
to
run the
maintenance
risk of clogging up that top layer even quicker. And then that could get, then that could flood or,
Okay,
It's just, if you Google infiltration trench detail, a bunch of stuff will pop up. You'll be able to see a simple drawing of the trench, just like yours. And it's got the fabric on 3 sides on the bottom.
okay,
Yeah. So
It'll show you how to anchor it and everything. It's definitely going to be necessary to help you build it. I don't know if you've ever built anything like this before.
yeah, I was in construction for
Right.
20 years.
Awesome.
So,
Perfect.
and I have access to people that do this type of work for a living.
Okay, good.
So, I mean, I have friends that are willing to help me with this project. So,
Perfect.
I mean, I'll do whatever it takes, to get this project done.
Yeah, as long as you build the trench correctly, I mean, everything else looks
Yep.
great.
3 foot by 3 foot trench with the mesh felt on the sides and the bottom, with the 3/4 inch stone on top, and then that's what I'll do.
In light of kind of collecting surface soils that would clog this, maybe we do have you wrap it on 4 sides with the top layer being 6 inches under, and that way you eliminate the surface soils that are entering this trench, and those can be taken out and cleaned more easily. And then the deeper ones, maybe you'll get away with it for longer. It seems
Okay.
like that's reasonable. I've never done it like that, but I
I mean,
also
it
really,
seems easier to have like a silt fence up that he would just replace every once in a while at that point.
I can put a silt fence up in front of the trench if that's what it takes.
I don't know. It's a matter of maintenance. Brad, I'm not sure that might be a good construction method. Four-side method.
I'll do the, I can do the fabric in the 3 sides and then put a silt fence along the trench to collect any silt that comes off the driveway. And it'll give that, the fabric a longer life on the sides and the bottom of the trench.
if you don't mind looking at a silt fence, I think this is a reasonable solution.
I don't have a problem with that. I just want to get my driveway to where I can use it again.
I understand.
Right.
I think we'd like a silt fence, temporary at least on the low side of your project.
Yes, Madam Chair. I had planned on putting a silt fence in. I didn't put it in on my plans. That was my bad on my behalf. But I will put a silt fence on the lower end of the project to catch anything that's coming off of the driveway while I'm doing the work.
And can I ask, what are you going to do with the excess soil that you take out of your trench?
That will probably be placed along the side here where my the yard meets on the right side, just to even off the driveway a little bit more.
Okay, so it won't go on the low side of the project then?
No, it won't be anywhere near the wetlands. It'll be on my yard side, just
Mhm.
to kind of level it off a little bit.
So just to be clear, talking about any placement of soil outside of the lines which are surrounded on the left and bottom by the 3x3 trench and the edge of the recover area of the driveway on the right side is not something that this board is supporting at this time. And so any soil, you can keep some soil in your driveway to level it off, but honestly, I think you'll probably have more coming out of this trench than you anticipate. And I for one would want to see any excess carted off site.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
you'll probably have a lot. I mean,
And we're looking at
20 cubic yards probably for just
Well,
one
yeah.
trenches potentially, if that's really 60 foot long.
110 cubic yards, right? 60 and 50, 3x3 trench. So that's 1 yard. Oh no, 3 feet.
Yeah,
So
for just one of the trenches is what I was doing. Yeah, so
yeah,
about 100. Yeah,
110
a good amount of soil. That's for
divided by 3. Yeah, so we're looking at about 40 yards, which is 3 trucks easy.
Okay.
So that's a lot of, some fill.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. I
Something to
mean,
think about.
yeah, I mean, most definitely. Like I said, I just want to make sure that, I'm doing this project right, and I want to make sure that I'm not going to have any problems down the road. I will, if I have to remove the material off site. I mean, I have some areas in my yard that I could use some material, like underneath my porch in the back next to my house. I mean, I could use some of the material there to level it off.
Once you start talking about additional fill inside the buffer, we are expanding to the scope of this project.
Okay. All right, then I'll have it hauled off. That's not a problem.
Okay, so did I hear a motion, or we were just proposing? Has someone made a motion yet about this?
Well, I made a motion, Louisa, but I guess I could modify in light of what Weston and Brad were just saying. So I guess I would modify the motion to issue a -3 determination with a special condition to install that filter fabric within the drainage trench.
Yep. I have no problem. I can put that right on my plan.
Yep.
When I go down to pick up my permit, I'll submit the plan to the engineering department, and they can put it on my file.
And I mean, Weston's suggestion's a good one. you can consider it a little science experiment. If it works, great. It prolongs the life of your filter fabric. If not, it's a cheap investment to see whether it works.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. The main thing here is protecting the wetlands and anything that runs off my driveway. I
Right.
want to make sure that, I'm not doing something against the law and causing harm to the wetland.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay,
I guess
So that's
just
my motion. If anyone wants to second it.
second it.
Right.
one last point. We would want to see the driveway slope on this plan from right to left so that the water stays off of the right side and runs toward the trench. I mean, it's kind of,
Right now, from the right to the left, it already slopes.
yeah, we
the
just
whole-
want to make sure it stays that way so that water isn't running off toward the right side property line, right? Because then it doesn't go in the trench.
Exactly, yes.
I know, I just got to say it.
No,
Um,
I agree 100% with you.
Cool. In that
I
light, I'll
might-
second.
Okay, so we have a motion made and seconded. We're not getting all of the detail we've discussed into the motion or into the document that we're creating, but we have a record of it here. It'll be in the minutes and it'll be on the tape. So, just keep in mind the points we've mentioned as far as silt fence, slope, and all of those other things. Can we have a vote on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
I can't see you, Bill, right now. Are you?
Aye.
Okay. And Kevin, I can't see, but he's there.
Aye.
All right, thank you. All right, motion passes unanimously, and good luck with your project, Mr. Dean.
Thank you very much.
We'll be
Going
dropping
forward-
by every now and again.
Now going forth, I should go down to the building and the engineering department and submit my plan to them and get my permit and everything.
I think so.
Yeah, you would, I'm not sure if
Yes.
you're not using hard asphalt, if you need a paving permit, that's not my area of expertise, but
Christine, what do you think?
Yes, the next step would to apply for a permit in the engineering department.
All right, I already had applied for a permit and they sent me here. So I'm assuming the permit is still valid. They
So,
would-
yeah, so what I'll do, since Ms. Sigliano's on vacation, she won't be able to write up the permit this week. I'll send an email up to engineering to let them know that it is coming for the Conservation Commission, and whoever you are in touch with will reach out to you directly.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure. I know we're close to the public, so hopefully that will help.
Okay, thank you very much for everyone's help and you all have a nice night and thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good night.
Thank you. Good luck.
Good luck.
all right. Next on our agenda, we have a notice of
Yes.
intent sent in by the Boston Gas Company, DEP file number 2060804. And this is the Lowell Area Gas Modernization Project. This is a continued hearing from our last meeting. We had asked for a little more information and we had quite a few interested citizens that wanted more information. And I think we've gotten in quite a bit of new material. I'm not sure if I need to read this whole thing. It's a proposed gas pipeline replacement, some of it under the Lowell connector and Interstate 495, using horizontal drilling techniques along the existing gas line adjacent to Route 3. And the wetland resource areas include inland bank, riverfront, bordering land subject to flooding, land under wetlands and waterways, and bordering vegetated wetlands of Black Brook and River Meadow Brook. I think we have quite a few people here representing this project. Is Mr. Schwitzman here?
It's
There.
Corey, it's
Okay.
Ms., but that's fine. I can't get my video to work, otherwise you would have known.
Okay, all right.
Hello, thank you for having us again. Happy New Year. Saw you right before the
Happy New Year.
holidays. Thank you. I'm here. Shona Patasteas from TRC is here also, who has been the consultant on this project for several years. And we do have a team, a selection of our project team here to answer any specific questions should they come up. We did submit our supplemental information on January 4th. We answered the questions that were presented by the commission from the last hearing, and also provided responses to the questions that were submitted by the Lowell Sustainability Council. In the body of the memo itself, we addressed the questions from the commission, obviously, and all of the project specific and wetlands related commission questions, and provided the full response to the LSC's questions as an attachment. We also provided the plan set as requested as an attachment. It should show the engineered drawings that we have prepared for the project in Lowell through the wetlands and the stream crossings. And we are back tonight to provide any further clarification on that submittal as needed.
Okay. So how do we want to go about this? Does the commission have questions or comments at this point? And then we'll have comments from the public if there are any. And Bill.
Well, thanks, Louisa. I read the submission. I thought it was very thorough and responsive to what we asked at the last meeting. I think it clarified a few things. A couple of threshold issues, I think, were addressed up front, which was really helpful. And that is, at the end of the day, a lot of the questions at the last meeting focused on, if you recall from the last meeting, I talked about the typical protocol for these projects of, can you avoid an impact to the resource? If you can't avoid the impact to the resource, can you minimize the impact? And if you can't minimize, what are you going to do about mitigation? And reading through the supplemental information, certainly the applicant, in this case National Grid, followed that protocol. To the question of whether or not is this project necessary? In other words, why have any impact to the wetland? Can it be avoided? I think the response was pretty explicit that, you can't avoid the impact. I think they went through a number of boards, the siting board and the MEPA process, and the conclusion from that, it is required. This is a necessary project. So we're in the realm of, we shouldn't be here to debate, should or shouldn't this be done? I think that decision's been made by others. So for us as a commission, we need to focus on the impacts to the wetlands and how do we, can those impacts be minimized? And if not, what additional mitigation should be out there, or what additional mitigation should be put in place? And I, for one, reading through it, I find, that the applicant is taking actions to minimize the impacts through the implementation of best management practices such as construction matting. Any disturbed areas will be restored. I think we can maybe have, I guess where I'm going with this is I think we should focus our conversation on clarifying questions and comments, if any, with respect to minimizing impacts and or mitigation, and whether or not the level of effort proposed by the applicant is sufficient. I don't think it would be helpful to get into a further discussion about whether or not the merits of the project, should it be implemented or not, because I think, frankly, that's outside of the jurisdiction of this commission. And if we were to make a vote on that, I wouldn't be surprised if that was appealed to Mass DEP and we would be overturned. So I'm trying to look at it in the, where do we kind of focus our efforts in an effort to kind of get the best bang for the buck with respect to our review. And I'll leave it at that.
I think that was part of my point, Bill, entirely.
In light of, keeping this as concise as possible, I hear where you're coming from. I would debate that an impact to the wetlands is necessary and absolutely proven, that the risks of a project like this to the wetlands outweigh the natural benefit to the gas company and to our constituents using this service. So I don't necessarily support, the angle at which you took to this, the stating that it is absolutely outside of our jurisdiction to be questioning whether or not this is a necessary project as a whole.
Okay.
Would you like us to respond to this? I just want to make sure that if everyone gets their comments out and then we can go back through, or do you want us to?
I like that approach. Anyone else from the commission have any comments?
I have one question. I would like someone to explain the other candidate routes to us. Just touch upon the routes, what the reasoning was to go with the route that was chosen.
Okay. Somebody want to try to answer how the choice was? Are we following an existing line for the most part?
Correct. For the most part, we are paralleling our existing line and staying as much as we can within our existing right of way. So that is a big factor in how we chose routing. There were a number of additional other concerns. We went through alternatives analysis that looked at community impacts, impacts to roads, existing infrastructure, several other aspects. Shona was very involved with the alternatives analysis. Can you help me provide any further detail on this?
Yep, absolutely. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can now.
Okay, so the as part of the siting board, we looked at a part of our petition. We looked at 7 different routes throughout the city of Lowell, one of which is the existing route, and a number of different variations. Where the Lowell, the Tewksbury system enters into Lowell, right near the cinema, there's a lateral, so it splits, and there's the Wilbur lateral, which goes up toward Wilbur Street, and there's a Doane lateral, which goes up toward Doane Street. And there's a few of the different variations on the route where we looked at going up the Doane side, we looked at going up the Wilbur side. There was a few routes that went kind of through Stedman Street, a number of different on-street routes. When we went through the siting board process, the siting board looks not just at environmental, but they also look at community social impacts. So as part of the siting board proceedings, we actually had response from the city of Lowell, a letter that the city of Lowell, a number of city officials wrote in support of any of the routes that did not go through the city streets. They felt that the impacts to construction phase impacts to to tearing up streets, to that kind of the process would not was not preferred by Lowell residents. Just the route of the pipeline itself. Similarly, the cost increase to go through city streets. If it's a much longer route than the one that proposed, there was a much larger cost increase to go through those. Some of the other kind of factors that looked into was the general abutters, the route it's taken, which is the existing, goes through a more kind of open space. There was a number of different abutters that would have been impacted by construction. I thought I had a map pulled up, but I can't find it. But there was kind of 3 main routes and then a number of different kind of offshoots. There was another route we looked at that went from in the Chelmsford side out and around Chelmsford and back into to Lowell as well. And similarly, that one was through a number of different city streets. All of these routes didn't avoid stream crossings. There were still, a few stream crossings, both in Blackbrook, River Meadowbrook. Some of the routes crossed these streams a few times. There was also other, larger infrastructure when you're going through and around highways. The existing route was a little bit easier to maintain than some of the other ones.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Go ahead, Bill.
All right. So my read on the supplemental information, and I'm just trying to put this in context, is both the siting board and Executive Office of Environmental Affairs in Massachusetts concurred with National Grid's assessment that this project is needed to facilitate enhanced inspections. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. So with that conclusion, now what your alternatives looked at is, okay, if the need is there and both agencies support the rationale for the need, how do we implement it? And you looked at about 6 or 7 alternatives through a number of different criteria in a way to optimize the best solution with the least amount of impacts, considering both environmental and community factors as well as other factors. Is that correct?
That is accurate.
Okay. And where you landed was the alternative that you presented to us in the last meeting.
Correct. It was their determination and concurrence that this would be unfortunately the least amount of impact to several realms. And considering that the wetlands and natural resources impacts are temporary and mitigated for, that was the most able to recover the impacts. So that's how we landed here. And due to their concurrence and issuance of certificates on the matter, that is the route that we have to move forward with.
Right. So again, I guess I would just restate what I said earlier, in that our comments, in my opinion, should focus on, looking at that alternative. I think we had a number of questions about, and you provided a response. I'll give you credit to that. About, do you really need a 75-foot wide corridor, to perform the work? I think you provided a response to that. I also appreciate providing response to questions that are outside of the jurisdiction of this commission, but important to the community, particularly the Lowell Sustainability Council nonetheless. So I, for one, feel like you follow the process. Let's put it this way. If this was a federal project with public hearings and the applicant being required to respond to comments and what we would call a responsiveness summary, I think you meant the intent of that type of protocol as well, whether it's a DOT project or a national priorities list Superfund site, record of decision. It feels like you followed the similar process. And for that, I thank you. So I would argue that we should focus our comments on whether or not we agree that the actions, the BMPs and other actions taken to minimize the impacts and the mitigation that the applicant is proposing, we agree with or not.
And in that light, I would agree with Bill that, any merits of the necessity of this project have been covered already in our public hearings.
Okay, we did have that question about the impact on the wetlands. Is there any way to minimize that? And is that trench proposal, is that the original intent, or is that one of the things that you changed around a little bit to minimize the trench width and the impact on the wetlands?
That the trench that we are proposing and that we went into detail on in the response is the design, and one of the measures that we use to, as Billy was saying, as part of the avoid minimize process. So it minimizes the environmental impact, and it also is a good safety measure for us to use while working in those kinds of soils.
Just to clarify, that's that string lay construction method outlined in both the proposal and your follow-up submission?
Correct.
A question that I think Weston brought up at the last meeting, and I agree with it. It's, I think the concern we had is, in the end, I think you make an argument as to why you need a 75-foot wide corridor. I'm not necessarily looking to question that further. But that being said, I share Weston's concern that, that much open space to direct sunlight, if you're looking at restoration, I do have concerns that area is going to dry out and never restore. My sense is that the restoration plan with the monitoring, I think you mentioned a 5-year period, that if it doesn't look like the area is recovering, you would be obligated to provide additional mitigation to help ensure the success of the recovery. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, exactly. That's the kind of the point of the monitoring, and the proposal that we are open to doing additional monitoring beyond the 5 years. So and we'll be in constant contact with you and the other agencies that we're beholden to for mitigation to ensure the restoration of this area and that it's successful. So if, even if at year 3, we're not feeling confident or anyone has concerns, we can always look back at this plan and make adjustments. It's a living plan. As you, I'm sure, are all aware that this is not a cut and dry science. Restoration has to be like a living thing that we work with in the field all the time. So we will be out there monitoring it, communicating with you, providing reports all along the way, and we can all keep track of that process.
Thank you.
I'll add to that too. I mean, any corrective actions, if they're necessary, they would be brought before the commission, prior to being implemented. We detail kind of what we saw, what might need, some sort of support or mitigation action, and come in front of the commission to say what that was, what we'd propose to be part of it every step of the way.
What is, how long does a project like this to take to do it, the string and lay method?
I believe that our project schedule, once we start, will be a total of a year to get everything in the ground.
And just like, what does that compare to, less string and lay type method of more of smaller corridors? I just don't. 75 feet. That's just a lot. How deep are you digging in most places? I think it's only 3 feet, right? Most.
Right.
So is that to the top of? That's to the bottom of the pipeline.
Right. We need 3 foot of cover on top of the pipeline for safety. Oh, I'm sorry. It's a 5 to 6 foot depth.
Okay. I mean, I just don't know. 75 sounds like a lot. I'm gonna keep thinking about this, but I just doesn't seem necessary to me. I mean, to be digging down only 4 feet in most places. You're gonna have like a 5 foot trench, a couple cubic feet of a couple cubic yards of soil. I don't feel like you need a whole 20-foot corridor to store soil and then work around it with your vehicles. But
well, and I understand the concern. It does sound like a lot, and these projects can look like it's a big impact. The 75 feet accomplishes a lot of things. It's a safety measure for sure. While we're doing the string lay, we have to be able to get around each other. Having the additional surface area and the major equipment that we're having out there really does help to spread that impact. So we're not compressing soils and we're not killing vegetation. So it really does act as a BMP. It's something that we've worked on with the Army Corps for years on getting this, working on these BMPs and watching them restore. So it's definitely necessary for safety in many matters, and it is a temporary impact. I know it sounds bad and may look off for a little while, but it will come back. We've been using this methodology for a long time, and in those wet, saturated soils, having more surface area is better for the soils, and it's definitely better for safety for the large equipment that we're bringing out there. And we're, because we're segregating the wetland soils for restoration, we need to have them within BMPs themselves so that we're not adding turbidity to the wetlands. So we're storing them in a way that is not just dumping soil back into the wetlands. So that in itself takes up more room as well.
Right.
Anyone else want to add to that discussion? We've got this side conversation. I just want to make sure I'm not.
Yeah, no, that's good. Well, let's continue on that. Where have you used this method before? We have examples of this type of wide corridor being used through a wetland to replace a gas line.
It's a typical construction method we use on projects when we're in wetlands, and when we've looked at this wetland for this long and this.
Do we have like an example? We could be like, okay, maybe let's take a field trip, how it's recovering.
I don't have an example off the top of my head for that. I mean, we use wide corridors of swamp mats or construction mats through wetlands on almost every project that I've worked on, and we do the monitoring according to the DEP and the Army Corps. So we have seen the wetlands recover from just being covered with swamp mats for a short period of time.
Right.
I will point out too, I mean, the 75 feet, it's standard industry practice. FERC actually has a crossing manual that walks through wetland crossings, upland crossings, and 75 feet is directly out of the FERC manual. So it is standard across industry. You know, I'll kind of reiterate like how we described it in our memo. When you have when you have string and lay and you've got very 300, 400 foot long sections of pipeline, you use pretty large equipment to to lower that into the pipeline, or sorry, into the trench. So we use boom cranes or large excavators, and when they're kind of hopscotching along, one holds the pipe and lowers it into the trench while the other kind of comes around. So that the operating space is where you've got two very large pieces of equipment jumping back and forward as they're moving up the line. Plus the actual pipeline itself is sitting on the on the side of the matting. And when you're moving around the all the equipment on top of really wet, loose soils, like the matting itself kind of disperses that weight. So you do want to give them a little bit of operating room. The more you narrow that space, the less that they have to to operate in. It's just for safety to give them that bit of wiggle room.
No, I understand 100%.
Yeah.
I know how it's done. I'm just, it's funny to see the 50-foot wide corridor on an upland and then the 75 on. I understand it's for the mats and the soils and everything. I just feel like a further effort could be placed, to look at soils in better conditions. Okay, we're going to shrink up the corridor here. Soils in worse conditions, it's got to be 75 feet. I mean, I just feel like to just go through this whole project, say 75 foot. Just seems like a cop-out kind of. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think where we've tried to respond to that, where we can is through some of the forested areas where
Right.
that 75 feet is right on the edge of a tree. We're not going to kind of cut a tree in half just to make the 75 feet. In the memo we'd said that we were going to walk beforehand and try and kind of squeeze around trees, so it's not going to look like an exact 75. We'll work within the limits as we can. There's a limited amount of flexibility, but you do need that space where where you can to move this equipment around safely.
So related to that, I'm assuming part of that has to do with kind of the arc of the excavator arm, making sure as it swings around. But I'm glad to hear that some consideration about trees, because I know at the last one, particularly Commissioner Varna brought up the fact that usually a project this scale, we'll have kind of like a survey to say, all right, we recognize, generally speaking, this within this footprint, this many trees need to be removed. But, for some very large mature trees, there's an opportunity to kind of work around and save them versus just kind of, looking at everything as a monolith and taking down everything within that 75-foot wide swath. Have you guys given any further thought to that? I mean, is there an opportunity maybe to kind of, before work starts, if there's some significant mature trees that are kind of on the periphery, maybe within the 75 foot, but not, not within 50 feet, that, give due consideration to saving trees where it makes sense. And
we're definitely doing that. I think that we got into some detail in that in our most recent response, that we plan to do a walk down and identify trees that we can save in the forested area, so that they'll be marked as not being removed, so that we can preserve them and hopefully preserve some habitat and some shade value. That's definitely the area where that would be the most concern. That big wetland that crosses the Middlesex Canal, I mean, that's wide open all the time. It's a Phragmites wetland, so that we all know that'll come back quickly. So the concern and where we've applied and really looked at the most sensitivity to restoration efforts is in that forested wetland. I don't mean to cut this off, but I believe Jess Wall from our team would like to jump in with a comment.
Sure.
I don't know if she's been introduced before.
Hi, good evening, commissioners. My name is Jessica Wall. I'm an attorney at Anderson and Krieger. I'm the wetlands attorney working on this matter as outside counsel. One thing that I just wanted to note about the 75-foot corridor that we've been talking about. So obviously we want to be, responsive to the commission and thoughtful about wetlands in the same way that you all are. We have had the conversation about 75 feet. I believe at both the MIPA throughout the MIPA process, in the DEIR and the FEIR, and I believe it was also looked at in some detail in the EFSB proceedings. So you all, the questions that we're talking about tonight are also questions that state environmental regulators had, and we did provide in those reports documentation about why we need the 75 feet. Partially it's a FERC standard, as Shona mentioned. So I just wanted to note that for folks, that the avoidance, minimizing, mitigation considerations that we've been talking about, that those happened at the MIPA level, certainly.
They're going to happen here too, I think, because we're both, they might be a little higher up, but it's good to see this effort being put forth. I don't know. That's what I like to see. So,
I don't want to interrupt the conversation too much here.
No, it's good. Thank you for your comments. I think just looking for further explanation. This is a big project. There's a lot of impact. I don't think we should treat this as anything that's going to be going quickly. We need to fully understand this.
So, something else that we often see on projects of this size would be a tree inventory, a plan that shows the location of the trees to be saved and to be removed. And that may be something we might consider requiring, so that we have, a clear guide with which to perform our site walk and select trees that are, more important to save, and show us exactly where they fall on the 75-foot line.
I think that's a good idea as well. We do have quite a few members of the public here that some spoke last time. That doesn't prevent them.
Looks like Kevin might want to say something, Louisa.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I just have one more question. So this total project is about $38 million. Is that correct?
I believe the estimate that we provided was 42.
Okay. So I just want to know how much of that is going to be going towards the reforestation mitigation plan.
I don't have that estimate parceled out off the top of my head here. I apologize. We could provide that possibly if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Condition it to know.
The reason I'm asking is just because that's the most important part to us, is the reforestation plan. So I'd like to see it done the best it possibly can be.
Absolutely, and I feel like we put forth a pretty robust plan, and we're going to spend the money that needs to be spent to get done with it. But I mean, the all in all, the project mobilization and construction costs are going to always be far larger than what we are going to spend.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how satisfying that number will be, but I can try and pull something together.
Just kind of echoing what Kevin's saying, I think just kind of looking at the overall scale of the project, I think what we're getting at is, what percentage of the project is going to go towards mitigation. Again, if we follow the protocol of avoid, minimize, mitigate, we're certainly in the realm of mitigation. What's the general scale of that? I think that would be helpful context for not just us, but for the general community as well.
I mean, we can always look at it from a temporal scale. The project itself is going to take a year, but we're planning to do 5 to 10 years of restoration, mitigation, and monitoring. So the time that we're spending is definitely far outweighing what we're doing as far as project work.
Okay.
And go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, please go ahead. And then I didn't mean to interrupt.
And it's not going to be directly proportional to the cost of the overall project, but we are committed to being out there as long as, as we've proposed to make sure that we do mitigate this properly. And additionally, this isn't the only mitigation that's happening. We're also paying a substantial in lieu fee to the Army Corps for mitigation for this as well. So that should go, and that goes towards, watershed level restoration and mitigation efforts.
Great, and that was gonna, 2 final quick questions, related to that. So I was just curious when we've been talking about the siting board and the Executive Office of Environmental Affairs. I'm just curious, I think what you're hearing is some of the questions, not surprising that you've been through already with those two regulatory agencies. I'm curious, did the Army Corps of Engineers have similar comments when you went through the Section 404 Clean Water Act process with them?
We're still in the midst of that process. I expect that they do have some of those similar questions. We did have a site walk with the DEP from the 401 program. They had similar questions, but really saw this project as being pretty straightforward and what they see at this industry level and the size of project. So from my conversations and coordination with the DEP reviewer, I'm confident that he feels that we are mitigating properly. They don't have any additional requests in that area.
So is it fair to say that from your perspective that comments that we have align with and are consistent with comments others have made earlier in this process, namely Executive Office of Environmental Affairs and the Siting Board?
I think that's exactly true. And when writing that memo, we were trying to be very kind of diplomatic and not say, we're repeating what we're doing, but we wanted to show that we've put this thought in. We did go through this several times at this point. We've provided the same information and had these same discussions and came out with kind of the justification that we're doing the best we can for a project that is required for safety of the community and reliability of energy delivery. We're doing the best we can, and we're providing a proposal to mitigate the impacts as best we can. So yeah, I think that that's a fair description.
Right. Well, and I, for one, I can't speak for the whole board, but my read on the substance of the response and the tone of the response was a good faith effort to kind of respond to the questions and concerns. I didn't take it anything other than that. I got one final quick question, just out of curiosity, because I know it's something that came up from the public as well, and it may be a little bit out of our lane, but I know there are questions about impacts in areas of historic and cultural areas. I'm wondering, under the Section 106 process, the National Historic Preservation Act, what mitigation are you folks, if any, looking at doing, to kind of address those types of impacts to cultural and historic resources?
So we've done, through the Section 106 process, we've done some extensive archaeological and historical properties testing and surveys. We have an archaeologist on board. He is going to be there throughout the process in all of the sensitive areas. Obviously, the Middlesex Canal is a big concern, and we did develop a protection plan for that, and we will be, the Mass Historical Commission didn't really have anything specific that they required for us to do to protect that, except we're planning to go kind of underneath it, and we will have the archaeologists supervising this process the whole time. So anytime we remove something, they're going to be kind of constantly checking the integrity and seeing the material that's being pulled out. And that's really the main part of that's the main focus. So that's I'm sorry, stumbling a little bit here. That's the most important archaeological site in the project. We did testing in many other areas. So far, we haven't come up with anything else.
I'll add too. There's two state agencies that are looking at Section 106 as well as Mass Historic. The Bureau of Underwater Archaeological Resources is also involved in the project. So there's plenty of scrutiny from different boards for under Section 106.
Is National Grid entering into a memorandum of understanding with those agencies? I'm just curious.
I don't think that's been required at this point.
All right. I'll be quiet. I mean, I think you've answered all my questions.
Before we get too far, I just think, I'm sorry you guys have to go through all this with us over and over again. Maybe you should have been here sooner. I apologize for that. I mean, I have the concern that things get lost in the bigger projects. They get money. It gets money thrown at it. It gets a lot of things thrown at it. So we're just trying to do our due diligence here, especially for the city. State agencies, the Army Corps of Engineers, they're like, oh, it's Lowell, it's a city. They don't need wetlands. I mean, we do need wetlands. I imagine that this is going to take a little bit of time to work through. I just, that's my concern, Bill. I understand that this is a lot of repeating for them. I understand that, you know, they've gone through a lot of this. They've had a lot of engineers look at this. So it's a little bit more that we're gonna want to see and hear.
Oh, I don't dispute that at all. I mean, I apologize. I didn't mean to come across that way. I'm just saying, you know, I'm glad, frankly, from my perspective, it's good to see that we're not an outlier. Questions and comments we have, it's good to see that they align with what we're at, what's been asked at the federal and state level. I think you're right. We need to look at things at a more granular scale than what these other agencies look at. I just wanted to kind of, from my perspective, for the public to know, you know, we're not outliers here. These questions we're asking are good questions, and the questions others have asked as well. I didn't mean to imply that, you know, we shouldn't be asking them.
Right.
Nor did I. I didn't mean to say we're unhappy to repeat the answers. We completely understand this process. This isn't our you know, the first time that we've gone through this, and it will certainly not be the last. And we want to work with the city, and we are committed to, you know, to providing the restoration and mitigation necessary following the project. Unfortunately, the process is such that this does become one of the last permits that we need to seek. The order that it goes in is not dictated by us. And we realize that we get to that and it kind of corners us all, right? Because we have these requirements already in place from these other agencies that do take rank on that, and we have to follow those. We don't have a lot of wiggle room in like, say, rerouting, but we are committed to working with the city, and we are here for the process.
And some of the earlier processes as well, the MIPA process, that does have a public a comment period as well. When we went through our filings with the MIPA process, the ENF, the DEIR and FEIR, we did get comments from both the state agencies, federal agencies, as well as a number of local local commenters as well. That we responded to those comments, and yes, they were in line with a lot of what is being said here again tonight.
Maybe this is a good time, Louisa, to maybe see if anyone from the public has any comments, unless there's any other comments from us as a board.
Sure. Is the board all set for now? We'll take comments from the public. If you can raise your hand and I can see it, or Christine can see it. Is there anyone that would like to ask a question or make a comment about this particular project?
There's Mr. Mason raised his hand.
Okay. Mr. Mason?
Hi, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I just want to say I've reviewed the question responses and the plans and found them to be very detailed and clear. I appreciate the effort that went into responding to our questions. When I say our, I'm talking about the Lowell Sustainability Council. But my comments are reserved independently for myself. I don't wish to construe that the things I'm going to say are connected to or represent official policy at the Sustainability Council. They do not. I want to take respectful objection to the notion that this support from the Siting Board and the Executive Office of Environmental Affairs constitutes, everything that's needed, because it really, this is, other than an initial public meeting that happened really a couple of years ago at the outset, I think this is the only, please correct me if I'm wrong, the only opportunity the public has had to weigh in on this project. And I know there's a lot of interest. It's a community that's quite strongly galvanized around lots of community-oriented activities. It's a wonderful community. I feel very blessed to be living and working in Lowell. But what I'm trying to get to is that it's hard for us to have something to say about this. And I feel quite strongly that there are some overriding environmental issues with the project. And I know they don't speak directly to the purview of the Conservation Commission, so I'll try not to go off on a tangent. But I would like to bring out the point that the Department of Public Utilities has recently opened an investigation as to the future of gas companies. This has been done by request of the Attorney General's office. It's docket number 2080. And it talks about looking at what the future of gas is relative to this climate change bill, particularly where we're reducing our carbon emissions by 50% in the next 9 years. That's an ambitious goal, and it's going to take a lot of effort. And it speaks to a potential reason to delay this approval so that we can learn more about what that bill stipulates and how it might affect the use of this pipeline. This pipeline is going to be around for a long time, and we don't want to invest $42 million of anybody's money if, in fact, it's not going to be something that we want to keep around with us. And personally, I think we want to get rid of gas as fast as humanly possible. So those are my personal observations. I could speak to the 75-foot width. Just one quick thing. I'm not sure about invasives. If there's not a lot of plantings going into those wide spaces, are we not going to get a lot of invasives in that space? And I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public that would like to make a comment or ask further questions?
Folks can either react or they can raise their hand. If not, they can just unmute themselves.
I think Mr. Grossman just raised his hand.
Okay, yeah, Mr. Grossman.
Thank you. Thank you. John Grossman, 83 Varnum Ave. The last meeting, the question came up about why we were disturbing the riverbed as opposed to going through the parking lot. And the answer given was that that was at the request, at least if I understood it correctly, you can correct me, that was at the request of the owner of the parking lot. Maybe I missed it, it's entirely possible, but I didn't see any elaboration on that. What is the cost benefit analysis there in terms of disturbing wetlands versus using that parking lot?
Just to clarify, this is the movie theater parking lot you're discussing?
Correct, thank you. Yeah.
I'm also curious to hear more about this. I had meant to bring it up. Hopefully, I was hoping it would come up from the public, so thank you.
Anyone from the gas company have?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I mean, the property rights issue is the prevailing issue there. We don't own that land, and it's privately owned property. So unfortunately, we can't just go through it and install something that is not that they don't want there. We've been negotiating with these landowners for years to get the property rights that we do have. So again, it's we also would like to see it go through. It can be a straighter route. That would be better for us probably, but it's difficult as the property rights are restrictive here.
The pipeline in this area is also not diverted through wetlands. It follows the course of the parking lot, but it has not been placed in wetlands around the edges of the parking lot.
Isn't there an easement for the existing service?
Yes, but we need to stay a certain distance from the existing line for safety reasons.
And this, I mean, I imagine it's the 30-foot easement that we're looking at here. How far away do you need to be?
I'm not sure that it's a 30-foot easement. There's some places where it's narrower than that. I'm not entirely certain.
I would definitely require clarification that this absolutely cannot be fit in that parking lot. Within the
we can't put it in that parking lot because the property owner won't let us put it in that parking lot. We don't have it. We don't have the right to just do that.
I mean, if it goes in the easement, you have it in perpetuity, do you not? And replacement of a line for maintenance should be covered under the use of that easement.
I believe we are following the easement to the extent possible though. And it still is, it needs to be where it's due to the property rights issues and avoiding wetlands, like Shona said.
I don't doubt your due diligence, but I need proof.
What, I'm sorry, I'm just not sure what you need proof of, where the easement is, or that we're within our easement, or that we can't build where.
Maybe there's a plan we can look at. I'm looking for it now. I can't find what sheet it's on. I forget.
Is this in the construction plans or the like the aerials that were provided for the first meeting? Do you know?
It should be in both.
I'm just wondering what Weston was thinking of.
Oh, sorry. Either one, honestly, so we can just see the easement.
Do you want me? You want me to screen share? Okay,
Whatever
hang on one
works.
second.
I don't know. Yeah, I guess so. I could if we share screen, or I just forget what page number I was on. I have the plans up here.
I think I'm looking at it now. I'm looking at page 3 of 22 of the plan set. I'm looking at a bunch of parking spaces, which I'm assuming is the movie theater. 20-foot easement here. I'd like to know how closely you can place, how closely to this existing line you can be working. I mean, it seems to come pretty close to it and cross it even in a few places. So, am I looking at the right place? Page 3. This is sheet C101.
I'm sorry, it's hard for me to pull up exactly what we need to. Can we work on this in the background and move on to another question just for a minute?
Yeah, and I'm fine to deal with this offline as well. I think that there are several things that we've discussed possibly requiring, but I would like to continue the conversation about the parking lot in further detail.
Okay, just please understand that this is completely restricted by the fact that we do not have property rights. We cannot put it through that parking lot. There isn't any further discussion I can give you on that. We've been negotiating property rights for a decade. It's not gonna magically happen now, unfortunately.
I'm not necessarily looking to change the design. I just need to fully understand why it can't follow the existing easement.
So I can take an attempt based on some conversation. In the area on page 3, we have a 20-foot easement that runs through the center of the parking lot. And please, we have a couple of engineers on the phone. If I've got this wrong, please jump in. We have a 20-foot easement. In order to get where the pipeline is in the easement, we need the additional temporary workspace outside of the easement so that we can maintain a distance between the existing pipeline where we're working and all of our workspace. And the property owner is not willing to grant us the additional workspace in the center of the parking lot. So our negotiation was that we can move the pipeline around the outside of the parking lot, not take the temporary workspace, and not encumber their future rights to develop the land. Please, if anybody jump in if I've got that wrong. So the diverting around the outside is because we couldn't get temporary rights from the property owner to expand our temporary workspace so that we could actually build the project.
So if I understand it, what you're saying is if the project is going to take about a year overall, you couldn't negotiate with the landowner an access agreement for use of that property for a year to do the work that is being suggested by some members of the commission.
It would need to be permanent access. It would need to be our permanent easement that we would negotiate. We would always need to have access to that to be able to get in there and if anything happened.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. So that obviously makes it even more complicated. It's not a temporary access. It's a permanent easement that you would be negotiating with the landowner.
Right. And they wouldn't even agree to the temporary access. So.
In that area, and I don't have the figure in front of me, in that area of the parking lot, like where the proposed route is, did I hear someone say that it's not within the wetland area, or it's outside of the wetland area?
Correct. Let me
It's in
see if
the
I can
buffer.
bring this in.
All right, so that was gonna be my next question, Brad. Is it outside of, frankly, even the jurisdiction of the commission? So it's still within the buffer. It's just not, it's not within the no impact zone.
All right, and one of those streams goes through the parking lot.
Yeah.
Can I try and I can try and share my screen?
Hey, Christine, can you give her access?
They do.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, let me pull up. Apologies just for a second while I work through the technology here. Okay, I think I might have this. Please let me know when you can see this. Okay, can everybody see this?
Yeah, it's coming up. Yep.
Okay.
Got it.
Okay, great. So you can see the wetland area here. There's sorry if it's a very small screen. I'm on a laptop, but the little purple kind of symbols throughout are the wetland area.
Mm-hmm.
The existing pipeline comes in. There's at the very rear of the parking lot. So this is the access ramp off of the Lowell connector coming onto. I believe this is up to 495. We've got the HDD coming down through here. So this is all subsurface. This is where it connects in. The existing easement is in here. It's a 20-foot easement. And then the wetlands are all off the edge of the parking lot here. So we come in with the HDD in this area. We connect in through the parking lot and kind of come up in and around the edge of the parking lot.
So it seems to me that the majority of your workspace could be flipped, especially in that triangle that we're looking at between the easement and the area where the proposed line dives back toward the wetlands. Right around there, so there's a triangle there between the easement and the proposed line where you have your work area set up. I still, I haven't gotten the answer about how closely you can work to the existing main, but theoretically, if you could work in the existing easement through the course of that triangle, you could increase your distance from the wetlands and keep the same work area that you've already proposed.
Sorry, can you repeat the question? You're saying.
So your yellow diagonal crosshatch.
Yeah.
And your blue diagonal straight hatch delineate the extents of your work area, correct?
Correct. And again, if anybody else wants to jump in, please do from our team. The orange is our temporary workspace. The kind of that slash blue is the permanent easement that we've been able to negotiate with the underlying property owner.
Right. Again, it comes back to the property rights, unfortunately. Yep. The way that this has been negotiated with the landowners to impact them the least and give them the ability to continue to do business. It's been, I think, the avoidance of the wetlands to the extent possible is shown here. The buffer zone is in parking lot. So it seems like it's maxed out in that effect.
There's not really a lot of people in that parking lot right now. I hear what you're saying, but
I totally agree. But that doesn't let us argue that it's not still theirs.
Right. Difficult property owners are difficult property owners. You can wish one thing, but they are with who they are.
Unless you already have an existing easement and you can work within that easement.
Right, which is confusing.
And we are to the extent possible.
We've had projects in that location in the past, and it is a fairly clear boundary there on the wetland. It drops off it, and you know, there's no question that it's wetland at the end of the slope right there going down. So, you know, I think this is a good solution. I don't think that the location of this line is going to impact the wetland from what I see now.
It was designed to minimize the wetland impact as well. We did try to take that into account as much as possible. There's it's you know, not to complain, but there's a lot of factors here that we've had to try and work with over the years. So we're this is the product of a lot of that concern.
Hey, Shauna, it's Jeff O'Donnell. Can I add something here?
Sure, go ahead. I can't see you, but.
I apologize. My name is Jeff O'Donnell. I'm an engineer with CHA Consulting, working with National Grid on the project. I'm the professional engineer that certified these drawings. And I just want to point out to the commission that, and Shauna, can you pan left?
Yep.
So as this is a replacement project, the pipe that is coming out of the HDD and then goes southerly and then back towards 490 or towards the Lowell connector, that work that is in that wetland is required just to be able to reconnect the new pipe to the dome lateral that runs collinear with the Lowell connector. So, you know, no matter what we did for alignment, that work that is in that wetland there would be required to make that connection.
Understood. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to make a comment or clarify something for us or ask a question? There you all are. Anyone else that would like to speak?
Mr. Grossman still has his hand up.
Okay, Mr. Grossman.
Thank you. I was just wondering if there could be a response to the question that Jay asked about the invasive, the problem of risk of invasive species.
Okay.
Would you like us to answer that, Madam Chairman?
This would be the risk of invasive species being the what comes back instead of the original plantings that are going to be cleared. Is that correct?
Yes, I think that's what Jay was referring to. He could clarify it himself, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any comments on that?
Sure. It's incorporated into our restoration and mitigation plan. Unfortunately, we can't take on, you know, removing all invasive species from everywhere. So what is there now, especially in the large open wetland, is invasive species. We certify our mats that they're clean when they go in and they're clean when they go out. So we're not spreading invasive species anywhere. The same with the equipment. It all gets cleaned as it's coming out so that we're not moving any debris that could produce a new community. As far as invasives control in the area that for the reforestation plan, we have committed in our restoration plan to control to the extent practical, and that will aid in the restoration of the native non-invasive species to keep it invasive free. So we plan on during our regular monitoring events to quantify and identify and hand pull any invasives that we find. Should it become a larger problem, we would approach the commission again and try and come up with a solution to keep any new invasive species from coming back to the extent possible. Is that clear?
Yes, thank you.
I just a couple quick questions, Louisa, if I could.
Mm-hmm, sure.
So with respect to your restoration and mitigation plan, my sense is there's no automatic sunset provision in it. It's a living document that will kind of obligate National Grid to kind of ensure the restoration following the work. Is that a fair statement?
That's how we like to see it, you know, because obviously we may have to make some of these modifications to different methods of restoration or invasives control that we would have to come back to the commission and talk about.
Okay. What's the reporting frequency from the, is there a reporting frequency outlined in the plan, and is the commission a recipient of that, report?
Shawna, please jump in if you know the answer. I believe it's at least annually. We are going to provide an annual report. If you would like, and I think it would go along with an annual monitoring event. But we may, I don't remember all the details off the top of my head. Shawna, is that accurate?
Yep.
Do you remember?
Yep. In the beginning, in the first few through the different stages, is the first year or so, I think we were kind of a biannual or a quarterly report, just to check on the project, the process as it's first growing, and then once you get into that, 2 to 3 foot of growth, kind of the next stages of reforestation, it was a yearly monitoring.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
Is the Lowell Conservation Commission a recipient of that report?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, and we wouldn't expect that would be, commission or conditioned. Yes.
All right. So meaning that, proactively, we wouldn't have to react. To Weston's point, he's spot on. I think you're aware, like with these projects that are big in scale, in the end, it's the local communities that have the greatest impact, and therefore, for us to chase down a report would be problematic. But if it's built into an annual reporting frequency, and the commission's a recipient, and maybe National Grid can be, give a general update at a future commission meeting, that to me would ease some of the concerns that we have about, after working in the 75-foot area, hoping it restores intent, all despite best efforts, it may not. I don't want to have to be in a position where we're chasing down National Grid to kind of find out what are you going to do to enhance the mitigation because it's not succeeding.
We don't want that either, and I would actually assume that would be a violation of our permit. So we're going to be out there providing the monitoring and the reporting, and I think that we had suggested that. So we assume it'll be a condition, and we'll definitely provide you that information.
All right, and so that's on the back end. On the front end, yeah, I think one of the things we talked about is, generally speaking, we understand where you're coming from. 75-foot wide area that may need to be cleared. But I do think, some sort of survey and maybe kind of walk through to kind of see if there are trees that could be saved. I, for one, would like to be notified when that's going to take place. And could we be invited to participate to help maybe select, some trees that, maybe could be preserved, if they're on the kind of cusp of, are they within the 75-foot area or not? That to me would be another condition. I think that would be fair and reasonable for us to ask.
Bill, that's part of my point with this large project. I think we need to take our time, figure out what areas are seriously, need to be respected, what areas are already diminished. And I just don't think that coming in with the 15-page plan set covering 10 acres is going to do it right away. I think we need to take time, figure out where these problem areas are, what we can do to help them out, and then move forward there.
So are we in alignment? Am I missing something? I think you probably described it better than me, but I think that's kind of where I was going in the beginning.
Right.
Okay. I just want to make sure I wasn't missing something.
No, that's great.
We can, happy to do this as a condition of the permit. We're planning on doing a pre-construction walk down anyway. Within reason, we're definitely happy to talk over trees. Just understand we'll have to have the engineering and construction people out there to say, whether this is going to be a doable option. But to the extent possible, we do want to save those large specimen trees. That's beneficial to the environment and beneficial to our project.
I'll use it from my own perspective. I view this as kind of looking for fatal flaws. I'm not looking to kind of make perfection the enemy of the good here. So, that's me. I'll let others chime in, but I think being part of that pre-construction survey, looking for fatal flaws, I would for one want to have the opportunity to comment on that, but I'm certainly not looking to micromanage the project and making perfection be the enemy of the good.
No, and as you know, looking for more of a team member approach to this, happy to notify you that it's happening. As long as we're all on the same page of, understanding that right, as you said, perfection can't be the enemy of the good. We has to be within reason to still accomplish the project goals. And just to clarify, there's only about 2 acres of tree clearing.
Right. I'm sorry. I apologize. The last meeting I overstepped. I thought,
I didn't want to step in, and you're correct about the overall project area, but it's closer to 3 acres, but it's
right. 3.86. Yeah, I see that now. I mean, that makes sense to me, and that's what kind of why I'm getting down to it. Like, okay, let's figure out where these woods are. These these nice forests. Let's go.
Nice little forests.
Let's figure out how we can avoid them. Let's shrink that 75 foot, and then let's move on that. I don't these open ugly wetlands that are already hurting. I'm sure they could use 75 feet of restoration. So I think that
no wetland is ugly.
Well, they were ugly this summer when we didn't have any rain, but I'm sure that
I know.
I'm sure.
And I would love to see them not filled with frag, but
right.
This is a never-ending battle.
So that's my point. I mean, certain areas like those are what they are, and 75 feet in that is nothing. It's really.
So within the forested area, we understand the concern and are happy to work to the extent possible to save the trees, and then we can implement our monitoring and reforestation plan and ensure that those communities come back and restore. And sometimes you get some really vigorous growth after following a disturbance. Right. So there's definitely potential there. We've seen it happen before. But yeah, absolutely. If we could we can include that as a condition of the permit, that pre-construction condition that we go and do this walk down, that's completely acceptable.
I'd rather figure out where those 2.86 acres are, honestly, before we move forward on it. Just looking at these plans, I can't tell what's wooded, what's not. It's tough. That's my opinion. I don't know how the board feels about that.
I agree with Weston. I feel like I'd like to at least do a site visit before we move forward.
Okay. Further questions from the public? I'd like to wrap up the question time here. If this is continued, I'm assuming we would have time for further questions, but I'm feeling that besides the site walk, we've pretty much covered all of the concerns here tonight, and of course last time as well. So I am concerned that we have some input after any site walk that we may take, whether it's a walk set up just for ourselves or whether it's tagging along on someone else's walk. And to that end, I'm wondering if we should leave the public hearing open for another meeting, or what's your feeling on that?
I certainly would like to leave it open. I think I'm going to need some direction going out there. This is 5 miles of line. I don't know where the forests are on these plans. So to walk that, when we figure that out, and maybe get a tree survey of those areas and whatever.
And if we can get some kind of a report of the tree cover to include in the plan set, I think that would be a bonus for this is going to be a long project. And yes, Ms. Wall.
Madam Chair, thank you. Just one clarifying question about a site walk. So in the interest of time, because we have, I think, all the right folks here tonight, would it be possible to set that date as soon as possible so that we can have everything ready for the commission's next hearing date?
Possibly this time of year. It might, the afternoon might not be so good with the darkness coming so soon.
Related to that, Louise, so what's National Grid's schedule? I mean, when would you ideally like to mobilize to begin this project? in the area that, you know, within Lowell. You know, obviously it's beyond Lowell, but I mean, that's what we're concerned about.
March is our construction start date.
So working back from that,
Technically.
you know, I think I did, you know, I think where we're kind of landing is not comfortable to close the hearing and vote on the NOI now, but understanding you want to wrap things up before March. So is there kind of a happy medium to kind of get what we're requesting and schedule that kind of site walk, you know, with you folks between now and sometime in March?
Right, and respectfully, I really wish that this had come up last time so we could have gotten that done before this hearing. We are completely willing to go out there and look at the wetlands with you. We've already had site walks. I mean, Fran was out and looked on a site walk with us a month ago, 2 months ago.
I wish we were told about that because I would have loved to have come out there and been a part of that sidewalk.
I think,
It was at
yeah,
their request.
it is what it is. We're here now. We would love to be out there, but I think in addition, we're also going to need some survey data, some tree data too. So if you guys want to work that into your schedule, that'd be great.
So can I respond to the tree? One of the figures that was in the notice of intent was it's a tree line survey, and it shows the areas where there's either herbaceous or scrub shrub or tree line cover, and how that intercepts with the 75-foot work area. So there is a plan set that shows you, and it's an aerial based one, so it shows you exactly where we'd be clearing trees, and I can
gotcha.
pull up the section of that.
Yeah, when you find it, if you could tell me the title of that, that'd be great.
Sure.
I guess to that end, we would like some tree data, and I would like to see some extra effort on not so much this string and lay, but more of like a bump out, something that can still be safe too, because safety is number one, of course, but less impactful to the 2.8 something acres that we're going to be clearing of trees.
So the plan set it's in attachment B in the notice of intent. It's the one called Wetland Cover Type Conversion Plans.
We can, I don't know if we want to keep talking. We can continue this offline, maybe, perhaps.
So in our files, this is saved as LAGMP Wetland Cover Map.
Okay.
Thank you, Brad. So let me ask this question of our group. What do we risk with closing the hearing, issuing a approving the notice of intent with a standard City of Lowell order of conditions, along with two special conditions, one being having that survey and walkthrough done before mobilization commences, and two, making sure that the O&M plan, Lowell, Conservation Commission is on the recipient list, and obviously confirm that it's a living document until restoration's been confirmed. In other words, there's no automatic sunset provision in that. What do we risk potentially by doing that? Because to me, that would allow the project to kind of continue to move forward, but it would preserve our right for the project not to go too far ahead without us doing our check-in and further due diligence.
I think that what Weston has been getting at this entire process is that these plans have shown a high-level overview of this project, and what we're looking to do is go area by area and inspect to make sure that we feel the small details are covered, and we can't do that with the information that we have without a site walk.
Right. All I'm saying is, and I agree with you, but what I'm saying is if we were to go forward and close the hearing and approve a motion to approve the notice of intent with a standard order of conditions, along with two special conditions, and be explicit in that special condition, mobilization won't occur until we do that site walk and confirm the 2.8 acre woodland area. It's been addressed to our satisfaction. Work won't proceed. I think we achieve the same objective without holding up in administrivia the notice of intent. That's just some food for thought. I mean, you know, I'm not arguing one way or the other, but I'm trying to find something that might be kind of the happy medium for both us and our concerns and what the applicants try to do, knowing that they've, in my opinion, made the argument for why they need to do this.
When's our next in 2 weeks?
Yep.
The 27th, I think.
And then again on, it would be the 10th.
Yeah, the second Wednesday of February, and then the fourth Wednesday of February.
Well,
Bill, I think we have some precedent for taking that approach. You know, that construction wouldn't proceed until we have approved a tree survey plan.
What would be the point of passing this NOI then? I mean, if we're not gonna, what would be the point of approving this tonight?
Well, I'll give you my opinion. I'd like to see what my sense, they want some certainty. They don't, there's a lot of uncertainty right now. I can appreciate that, but I don't want to give them certainty without protecting our concerns as a commission. And I think the way to do that is to, you know, we could move ahead with approving the notice of intent with the standard City of Lowell order of conditions and have in there those two specific provisions, you know, one, that we do the survey and agree on what will be cut and not cut, you know, prior to mobilization. And then the second thing, following the work, make sure that the restoration plan, you know, has the right language, notifications, reporting requirements, so that we're not chasing after the fact to find out whether succession has been achieved in that 75-foot area or not.
So my only concern would be that if we were to find something in, you know, an on-site analysis, that we feel like the design should be changed in some manner in order to satisfy our requirement to protect these wetlands, then we don't have the opportunity to do that anymore if we take the steps that you're outlining.
Why couldn't the applicant come before us again and say they want to do a minor modification to their NOI, you know, and make sure it gets
as a field change?
Right.
I mean,
anything that would have to be altered at this stage would I think would be minor enough that we would ask for a field change to the plans. You know, I feel like we've made the argument for why we need the space that we need, and we're doing our best to minimize impacts in the sensitive area. So those are kind of common special conditions that I've seen before. Pre-construction conditions that require a site visit, any, you know, an updated plan with information that you're specifically looking for that isn't outlined in your ordinance or in the Wetlands Protection Act regulations. And then we provide those things, but this keeps us moving forward. You know, it starts the appeal period and gives us the chance to continue moving forward with our permitting process.
Are we not like one of the last permits you need?
I'm sorry?
Are we not the last, if not the last permit you need, or you need one more?
This is the last process that we're going through. We've submitted all of our other materials. DEP has indicated they're waiting for, you know, the order of conditions to issue their certification, and we haven't received our 404 permit either.
Well, as a possible compromise, could we leave the hearing open until our next meeting? And then we have 2 weeks in which to try to get that site walk accomplished, and we then have something to talk about as far as what we'd like to see included in the final order.
That'd be lovely, Louisa.
I think that makes sense. I mean, my take is I think we're all here acting in good faith. And so in the spirit of that, trying to move forward, that to me makes the most sense. And I don't see why we couldn't do that.
One of the attorneys has her hand raised.
Okay, Ms. Wall.
Madam Chair, thank you. Just one quick question. So if the commission determines that it wants to leave the hearing open, I know that the commission in the past has asked for written materials 1 week in advance of a hearing. So if there are things that National Grid needs to put together for the commission's review, I would ask the commission what the expected timelines for that would be. So in other words, our hope is that if the commission decides to continue to another hearing, that we can have all of that information ready to have a comprehensive and hopefully final discussion about this at the next meeting. So I just wanted to understand a little bit about how logistically we anticipate all of that working if that's what the commission decides to do.
Or can those materials be conditioned for, if we don't have enough time between now and the next meeting to get the materials in, you know, if we've gone out and done the site walk and we've all come to some kind of agreement, then can that be part of, you know, at that point, can you condition it that we have extra time to work on that and provide that prior to construction?
Well, I think you have up until the meeting. And then we can talk about whether you want to condition that material at that meeting or not.
I've been told that I need to get the materials in 10 days ahead of time for you to review it in time for a meeting.
Right, but we're having this conversation. We can talk through it without the review. I think we're down to the nitty gritty, and you know, that can be a thing. We can talk over the site walk, what we found in 2 weeks' time.
I agree, Weston. Christine, I'd be curious on your opinion. My sense is I think we got that type of flexibility that Weston's suggesting.
Yes, the 10-day rule is a Lowell Concom rule. So it would, if you agreed with the applicant, I think that would be fine. I just want to make note that you wouldn't be able to have any of this conversation at the site walk. You would only be able to, you'd have to save all decisions and conversations for the public meeting.
I would have a question. Would we be working off site information that you've already gathered on a former site walk, or would this be a first try to catalog trees and locations of trees and things like that?
Well, we've been out there several times and we have extensive, habitat evaluation. I think that we're pretty familiar with it. I'm not sure that we've identified and all of the information about the plants living in the wetlands is in the wetland delineation. So correct me if I'm wrong, but Shona, do you feel comfortable that we would be able to show them the project area confidently?
So
we would, yeah.
That makes it feasible to actually get this done in 2 weeks. If there's already some material that we can, check or edit or whatever as we're looking at the site.
I think it's certain that we're going to work through this together. I don't know why we're talking about approving something that's not ready to be approved at all. We want to mobilize in March. It's 2 months away. We can figure it out before then. They'll have their team on standby, I'm sure.
And I don't mean to promise that the next meeting is going to be the closing either. It is. We have to be comfortable with it.
It's a big project.
Yeah. That being said, we're all acting in good faith here. I don't think, as I said, I'm not looking for perfection to be the enemy of the good. No gotcha moments, and certainly don't want to get stuck in bureaucracy of saying, well, it says 10 days. I mean, I think you're hearing from us. We're willing to be flexible. But I think the first step is really for you folks to kind of, when do you think you could propose a site walk and get us some information ahead of time, whether it's existing information, new information, so we can kind of have an informed site walk,
What exactly are you looking for for information? I mean, you want a whole survey.
Well, I think you said
we provided that extensive habitat evaluation with the notice of intent that goes through in a lot of detail what is in this area that we're talking about.
We require sometimes tree surveys where they pick out every single tree. I don't see what the extensiveness has to do with the problem. This is a large project. You are getting paid to do this work. We are protecting our city. I think that, this is a process we have to go through.
So is that what you're requesting? A tree survey of every tree on our
No, but
property?
that's
And is
similar
that-
information, like that type of information. We are looking for where the mature trees are, where the mature forest is, and we are looking how to minimize that impact. We are not trying to cut 75 feet of a corridor down that type of forest. Is that
So,
clear?
so we do have, I mean, we do have the plan set that shows that does have the tree line survey and shows kind of
I
where the
know, I
corridor is in the tree line
understand that.
survey.
I want,
Is that,
sure, we have that. Now we need to figure out how to get to a site walk, how to
Yeah.
look at that area.
so I guess my question is that particular plan set, is that kind of the what you're looking for? I mean, is that something that
The
you could
starting
use?
point?
Yeah, is that something you could use to, you know, to do your site walk?
Cer-
Is there something else
certainly.
on top of that? I guess
For-
I'm just looking for a little bit more clarification of
For
exactly.
myself, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
I don't know about Bill or whoever else was asking.
No, what I'm hearing is that's the starting point. What I'm hearing from you, Weston, is, you know, it may not be at a granular enough level to really kind of get down to helping to guide the site walk. You know, I don't want to be prescriptive and say how much detail we need. I guess, you know, the question, that's the starting point, but it may not, at that scale, it may not provide enough detail to really inform the site walk. And so,
Yeah, I'm sorry you guys are on a big project. This comes
Right.
with the territory. This is, we do things for people who are building sheds. So
Right.
you need to understand.
I understand.
yeah,
We're
it's the
just
scale.
trying, you know, we're fitting a lot of different schedule impacts in here, and
I
we
understand
would
that.
have
I
probably
worked with
provided this in the time that we, you know, took us to bring together all the last materials. So I feel like we're doing our part as well to work with the commission, and we want to provide this, but we need to know what you're looking for. We don't have a lot of time to provide it, and we want to get out there and get this, and with the understanding that we're not going to eliminate the 75-foot corridor. We're going to preserve specimen trees.
Yeah, so
So if we, we're going to get out there and it's going to be a discussion of we want all of these trees preserved, that doesn't
No,
feel like a fruit.
Obviously, you need to do your work. You need some type of space to do that work. Let's figure out the smallest amount of space you need to do that work in the most important areas. That is my goal.
you know, maybe folks, since, you know, we can't seem to really land on what above and beyond that initial, you know, plan, what was it, that attachment B wetland type plan? While
Attachment
we
B,
take to get into what additional scale we want, maybe we use that as a starting point, do the site walk, and just, you know, if we decide that we need to kind of inventory observations from the site walk in a plan that gets to a greater granular level than what's been presented, then we can discuss that at the next meeting, right?
Right. Exactly the point.
Is that, I don't think that's too much asking. I mean, in other words, if you're concerned about trying to be responsive to what we're asking for and being concerned about timelines, like I said at the beginning, I think we're all acting in good faith. Maybe what we can do is we'll rely on that attachment B, whatever the document is, as the starting point, schedule the site walk. We'll walk through it collectively. And if we decide, you know, if there are some observations that we make during that site walk and they're not adequately captured in the plan, then we can look at coming up with a plan with a greater resolution with currently there and discuss it at our next meeting in an effort to try and close out the hearing and move on.
Okay, can we get out there this week? Let's do this Friday. Let's use what we have now and head out to the field. And everyone can make their, their comments and their observations, and we won't discuss it. And then at the next meeting, we can, we can GPS some trees, we can collect a bunch of data, and you can condition exactly what you want to see prior to the construction. If we're just trying to continue to move ahead here. So a third Concom hearing in 2 weeks is fine. Really, we provided so much information and are really working hard to be a good team member and neighbor. If we can try and close this out next time, if we can get this done, that would be ideal. Or not ideal at this point, but it would be great.
You've provided a lot of information. Now we're looking to make some actual changes to the plans. I think we'll be able to figure that out down the line as we move forward.
So what I'm hearing is a suggestion that we schedule a time on Friday.
I'm for that. Yeah, sure.
I could do that. I mean, if it's either the first thing in the morning or later in the day.
I will accommodate it.
Later.
Whatever needs to happen.
Later in the day.
Yeah, I have a meeting at 9 o'clock. So
Later in the day. Like I said, I could do. I just midday was problematic for me. So maybe what? I mean, how much time are we thinking? An hour walk out there?
The area, if we're talking about the forested area, which I think is what we're all the most concerned about, yeah, I feel like an hour, maybe, maybe two would be great. An hour, I think we can probably do it within an hour, an hour and a half.
We can get the lay of the land in an hour, and if we got to come back individually to find out something that we're looking at, then we can do that.
Exactly. You have of course.
How about we aim? Does 3 o'clock or 2:30 on Friday seem to make sense?
Sounds good to me.
I can be there.
That works.
All right. Works for me.
And understood that we all have to observe the COVID protocols. So we're wearing masks. We wear full PPE on our rights of ways usually. There's no active instruction, so I'm not sure it all needs to be out there, but at least vests if everyone has one.
Mask, social distancing. Yep.
And social distancing. Yeah, we have to be. Have to be careful.
Yep.
Oh, is this 2:30 or 3? Which one? And where?
Yeah, what's the
I
run?
can send out an invitation and put a location on a map to show where a good meeting spot, if that's helpful.
That would be great.
Corey, I'm
Yes.
going to put my email in the chat. The staff person who is managing this project is not in the office this week. So if you can make sure that I'm copied on any correspondence, so I can make sure it gets to the commission, that would be appreciated.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, so we will be continuing the public hearing on request of the proponent.
I hate to interject. There's one hand up I see. Mr. Dale, Neil Dale. I know we were closing out.
Oh, thank you for recognizing me. It is relevant to this because the site walk, the longest path that is not following the old pipeline involves going around the parking lot at the end just before 495 for several hundred yards. It is right next to a wetland pond. And if the parking lot is inaccessible because the owner doesn't want you to dig up his parking lot, I would like to point out that the trucks involved in the wetland remediation of going around it are going to be even more impactful on his parking lot than simply digging it up diagonally. In fact, it's going to be a lot more impact on his parking lot. So I'm kind of surprised that the parking lot owner hasn't been talked to about this. And I think also it might be, if in case it's not totally clear what I'm saying, do the site walk there too. Take a look at it. It's just a huge impact on a wetland pond that doesn't need to be done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That entire area that you're speaking of is the one that's accessed through the cinema parking lot. Is that correct?
It is the cinema parking lot. It goes, the current pipeline goes diagonally across it. The current proposed route is to go along the edge of it between where the parking lot ends and about 15 feet away from a wetland pond. That's what you're going to do. That's what they're proposing.
Okay.
And to put all those trucks in there to do all that remediation is going to be much more of an impact on their parking lot than simply trenching it right across.
Well, from what somebody said, it may not be it may be a future development issue where you can't build on top of a pipeline.
Exactly. Right. We would need to constantly keep that clear, and they may or may not have future development plans. But noted.
Okay. Thank you for your comment, Mr. Dale. So are we pretty much at the end of our discussion for tonight? I'd say I think we've covered a lot, and we're going to get a notice via perhaps the DPD of when the meeting is. Friday.
Did we decide on 2:30 or 3, or does that not even matter because it's within half an hour?
Doesn't matter.
I vote for 2 because the sun sets at
Yeah,
4:45.
it's good.
3:30, okay. Sounds good.
Okay, so could we have a motion to continue?
I'll offer a motion to continue at the request of the applicant.
Made by Bill, seconded by
I'll second that.
Justin.
Or Brad.
Thank you. All those in favor.
All right.
Bye.
So thank you for attending tonight, and I know it's been a long night for especially our visitors that aren't involved in the discussing it as much as the board needed to. Well, I guess we can move on, and the hearing will be continued at our next regular meeting, which is 2 weeks from tonight. And it will be a Zoom meeting as well, I'm pretty sure. And
Thank you very much, Commissioners and Madam Chair.
yes, thank you for.
See you on Friday.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
See ya.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah,
Good night.
Jessica? Okay, we're all set, I guess.
Yeah, no, I don't have any further comments. I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for your time and attention to this matter. We really appreciate it.
Okay,
Thank
and
you.
oh, thank you.
Thanks.
Right, good night, anyone that's leaving us at this point, leaving the meeting. We do have a further business here. And next is a request for determination of applicability sent in by Paul Bergman for the Canterbury Village condominiums. And they're located on Boylston Lane, numbers 54 to 132. And this is a proposal to install a drainage system around 3 sides of the condo buildings that will drain into an existing detention pond. And the work would be occurring within the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands. Now, a few of us have been around here long enough to remember when a similar proposal was approved to put this type of installation around 2 of the other buildings in the complex. Mr. Bergman, would you like to tell us what you plan? Yeah, you're muted right now. There we go.
Okay, is that better?
That's better.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the commission, my name is Paul Bergman. My company, Bergman and Associates, put together this application. Madam Chairman just basically explained the entire project very well. Back in 2013, we went before the commission at that time with a notice of intent to build a small rock-lined detention pond south of building 132, which is the last building all the way down on the left of Boylston Lane. And that little pond, into that pond, we directed 2 foundation drains, one for building 132 and the other one for 110. That NOI was approved, the project was built, and then the condo property manager came back to us late last year and asked us to do a similar project for the 2 upland buildings, if you will, the first 2 buildings on the left-hand side as you go down Boylston Lane. And this is over in the western part of the city. Boylston Lane is just a very short dead-end road. To be clear, the line going into this little rock-filled pond is a foundation drain. There's no surface or storm water. The rationale behind these projects, back when these condos were built in the late 60s timeframe, in my humble opinion, they were built too low. And every once in a while, the lower level condominiums will get groundwater in them. So these drains are simply serving to intercept the groundwater table as it comes up, collect that water so that it doesn't flood the units and brings it down to that existing pond. The The pond itself is about 80 feet away from the wetland, which is to the west. So we're literally talking about 10 or 15 feet of plastic PVC drain pipe that's within the buffer zone. The work involves either what they call a ditch witch or a backhoe with maybe a 12-inch bucket to dig a narrow trench for the drainage line. So it's a pretty straightforward cut and cover operation. They would take down a section of the chain link fence that's around the pond right now, route the new drain line into it, put the riprap back, replace the fence panel, and that work is basically done. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions you might have.
I have a question about the site is fairly shady and quite a few trees, and your line seems to go fairly close to some of the trunks. I just wondered how you were going to dig ditches that close to the trees without cutting roots or having problems with getting the line past roots.
I can say that the line itself is as shallow as we can make it, basically because of cost. And from buildings 54 and 82, where we have our new perimeter drains proposed, it's down gradient, it's downhill from those properties all the way to the pond. So the other thing, Madam Chair, is that because it's a foundation drain line, it's normally going to be dry. So hence, we don't have to protect it with like 4 or 5 feet of cover as we would if it was a water line, for example. Yeah, I think I think that's it.
Other questions from the board? How is the earlier one working?
To be honest with you, me, my staff members, the residents that we talk to, the property managers have never seen water in the pond. So the lower units were not getting flooded frequently, but the reason they're doing this is like an insurance policy, so that, again, if the groundwater comes up, that we hope that they're basically foundation drains, intercept the groundwater and then direct it to the pond. So as far as we know, as far as we know, the lines are working fine.
Is there any maintenance involved in those lines?
No, they're foundation drain or perimeter drain lines that only see water that you could actually, you could drink. It's groundwater. They're intercepting groundwater. So there's no leaves or debris or cleanouts. They're wrapped in filter fabric, and all they ever see is groundwater.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What I recognize this as a similar project to what you did before, and if you haven't had any problems with that, I don't see that this one will cause any problems, and I didn't see any reason to request any further information or to deny it either. So
I should say that Francesca and Michael Stewart met with myself and one of my engineers a couple of weeks ago out at the project, and we walked all of the project that day, and I think they reported back to you, their findings and recommendations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If we have no further questions, do we have a motion on this one?
I'll make a motion to issue a -3 determination.
I'll second.
Seconded by Weston. Further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple quick questions. How long is the appeal period?
Once the paperwork for a -3 permit is issued, I believe it is 10 days. And it's only for DEP, not for abutters or anything like that. And so it'll likely be issued early next week.
Okay, Christine, thank you. And then do we get notified in writing?
I'm not sure how the signatory part of the permit is being handled during the pandemic, but you would get a physical copy of that -3 determination.
Okay, okay. Okay, thank you very much for your time. I know it's been a long night for all of you.
Yeah.
Good night.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for your
Yeah,
patience.
have a good one.
Bye.
Thank you.
Good night. Okay, we have a request for a certificate of compliance presented by Joseph Claremont for Jose Riallo and Rosa Riallo of 9 Nicole Drive. There's 2 DEP file numbers here. I'm not sure of the reason for that anymore. But one is 206431 and the other 206303. Mr. Claremont, would you like to explain what's going on here?
Yes, as best I can, Madam Chair, Attorney Joseph Claremont representing the homeowners Jose Riallo and Rosa Riallo on this request for certificates of compliance. The Riallos bought this property, which is a single-family home at 9 Nicole Drive on January 15th of 1999, and they lived there continuously until they sold the house this past November. Now, when the property was sold, it was noted by the attorney that did a title exam that there were 2 outstanding orders of condition for which no certificates of compliance were recorded. One was back in 1988 with an extension permit in 1991, and then a superseding order of conditions in 1997. I believe it was a 3-lot subdivision, at the time. There was a certificate of performance for planning board conditions approved December 29th of 98 for that lot, but no certificates of compliance were recorded. The house was purchased, as I said, by the Riallos January of 1999. They were unaware that of the orders of condition and unaware that no certificates of compliance were issued. The issue never came up for them in the 20+ years that they owned the property until they sold it, and then the title exam revealed the orders of condition. So they were required, in order to sell it, to escrow some money until the certificates of compliance could be obtained and recorded. So as I said, it's been over 20 years since the house was built. No issues that they're aware of, and they're respectfully requesting issuance of the orders of conditions to clear up the record. Thank you.
Okay, so that would be a certificate of compliance. That do you have any idea, Attorney Claremont, why there are 2? Is one of those DP numbers the superseding?
It is.
Okay. And they both affected number 9 Nicole Drive?
Yes.
Okay, I know there was some land in the back there, which I think has been transferred into conservation land. Yes, Bill.
Curious, was the order of conditions just a standard City of Lowell order of conditions, no special conditions?
It was a standard condition that I could see.
Okay. Thank you.
There was, I think, concern of drainage down into the brook, and there's a detention basin there, I believe, that is at the end of the street. I haven't any knowledge of any problems with the way the subdivision was constructed. I think it's high time for a certificate of compliance, and I think we should do we need 2 certificates though? Or,
we do. I think we need one for each.
Mm-hmm.
So does that mean 2 separate motions, Louisa?
I wish I knew exactly what each of those covered. I'm assuming it's the entire 3-lot 3 or 4 lot subdivision. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct. There was one lot closer to the brook. We were next, and then there was a third lot closer to Princeton Boulevard. So I believe, though, that the order of conditions covered the entire 3 lot subdivision until it was built. I believe, and I'm just guessing, what happened is when our lot sold, perhaps the other lots were not yet completed, so they hadn't proceeded to get an order of conditions. When the third lot sold, perhaps it just fell through the cracks that they never sought the certificate of compliance. But clearly, these 3 houses have been built, no issues for the 20 years. So respectfully request the order of certificates of compliance.
Okay, and Bill, I think we can do it either way. I don't think
All right, well,
we would need probably 2 different certificates to.
Well, if it pleases the board, I'll offer a motion to issue 2 certificates of compliance at the request of the applicant for the property at 9 Nicole Drive.
Okay, now when you
second
put it that way, Bill, is that just for 9 Nicole Drive, or are we going to release all 3 lots, the whole subdivision?
Oh, good point. Well, why don't we be broad here so we don't have to deal with this again?
Yeah, agreed.
So I'll let me rephrase my motion. I'll offer a motion to issue 2 standard City of Lowell certificates of compliance for the completion of the project under reference DEP number 2060431 and DEP file number 2060303.
Well said, Bill. Seconded. Kevin, you look like you want to. Okay, Weston beat you to it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. It's unanimous. And thank you, Attorney Claremont, for your patience.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good night.
Have a good evening. Okay, moving along, there's still more. We're up to a request for a determination of applicability for 555 Merrimack Street. And this is for the benefit of the Coalition for a Better Acre to redevelop this parcel into a mixed-use building and reconstruct the parking lot. And they're in with the 100-foot buffer of the Western Canal. And the old timers here are going to remember that I'm going to ask, but this appears to be the exact same project that we approved some time ago, that the construction was not started, and probably the determination has expired. Mr. Claremont, are you
I am. I don't get to appear before you very often, so I thought I would double up here. So on behalf of the CBA, Russell Pandrus is with us as well, and Brian Goudreau of Hancock Associations. Just to introduce it, as you said, Madam Chair, is essentially a refiling of the determination of applicability for this project that was filed in 2017 and has now expired. The CBA was unable to commence the project due to funding issues, and they're seeking a new determination of applicability. The project has not changed, but I'll let Mr. Pandrus give you a quick overview of the project for the members that weren't here 3 years ago.
Thanks, Attorney. Hi, everyone. I'm Russell Pandrus. I am the project manager with Coalition for a Better Acre, who is managing this project. So I'm here on behalf of CBA in that capacity. So for those of you who don't know Coalition for a Better Acre, we've been in business in Lowell since 1982. We are a community development corporation and an affordable housing developer, and we own about 476 units of affordable housing in our portfolio. A large portion of that is in Lowell. We organize community members for public participation events, neighborhood cleanups, community dinners, and voter engagement events. And during COVID, we pivoted and have conducted things like food deliveries to get things out to residents. So for this project in specific, we're undertaking this project. We are partnering with the supportive services aspect with Lowell House Addiction Treatment and Recovery, who are the former owners of the property, as a way to extend the continuum of care for people in recovery from substance use disorders. So we're proposing to redevelop the existing building into 27 units of affordable housing with a preference for people with substance use disorders. It's going to be independent apartment style housing. We're going to have attached case management to the property with recovery coach services, along with case management to help the residents in the lifelong process of recovery. I mean, our partnership with Lowell House, we both believe this sort of housing is needed and can improve the long-term health outcomes for Lowell and the entire region. As far as sort of like the direct benefits, direct sort of natural benefits for the project, we would like to develop some kind of canal stewardship partnership for that stretch of the canal walk. We know it's a problem and has been, and we want to do something about that. So we'd like to form some kind of partnership with whether it's Lowell Canal Cleaners or the National Park Service to help keep that stretch of the canal cleaner and just more beautiful in general. So with that, I will turn it over to Brian to talk about kind of the more specifics of the application itself.
For the record, Brian Goodrow with Hancock Associates. So in order to be brief, I'm going to give a very high level, just kind of overview of the project, and I'm happy to dive into any details that the commission would like to hear after. Currently, there's a half-acre parcel that's situated between Moody Street and Merrimack Street, fully developed. There's a parking lot and a building there. The project intends to raise the building and site improvements, construct a new 6,600 square foot building in approximately the same footprint. The face of the building facing the canal on the western side is going to generally stay the same, and then 23 spaces will be added to the parking lot. Site grading is going to generally be maintained with slight tweaks to make sure that we meet ADA. And then stormwater management is going to be implemented. Currently, there's a catch basin in an existing parking lot that discharges to the combined sewer in Merrimack Street. We're going to fix that. So back in 2017, we went through full site plan approval, coordinated with Mike Stewart at Lowell Regional Wastewater to develop the stormwater approach that we have. We received a letter on January 7th from departmental staff indicating that we are required to file for a stormwater permit. We've done that. I actually got onto a call with the stormwater team in between Christmas and New Year's and kind of rehashed the project because there's newer local standards that are basically in the process of being developed and rolled out. And what came out of that meeting is that we are fully compliant with the new standards because we're fully compliant with DEP. The stormwater management that we're proposing is twofold. The parking lot's going to discharge to an underground system that will ultimately convey 100-year or less frequent events, very, very slight discharges in those less frequent events to Moody Street. Moody Street is a canal feeder for stormwater, so the catch basins in Moody Street go to the canal. So we fully treat stormwater, we fully retain up to the 100-year event, and then have a slight trickle during that. The roof of the new proposed building is being discharged to a secondary underground system for recharge, and that secondary system actually connects to an 8-inch PVC pipe that exists today that discharges to Merrimack Street. And what we've done is we've ran through the calculations to make sure that we're retaining the required volume that the stormwater permit mandates, basically. So with these two practices, we not only meet DEP standards, we also meet the City of Lowell standards, and we're still coordinating with Mike a little bit on some of the nuances. The permit hasn't been issued, but we expect that to be issued shortly. With that said, it is kind of the same project that we received a -3 determination on in 2017. We've taken a look at it with fresh eyes. with respect to new local stormwater management criteria, and we're fully compliant. So with that said, we're here. We're happy to answer questions that the commission may have.
Tell me about the partnership with the, is it the Park Service where you want to help that section of canal along the edge?
So we don't have anything like written in detail right now. It's something our director of real estate has talked about pretty generally. We know the Lowell Canal Cleaners does a lot of work sort of in the Acre neighborhood, cleaning up the canals in the sort of central downtown area. And it's something we do is sort of a specialization of ours, is just like really mobilizing neighborhood residents to help out with neighborhood cleanups. So we think kind of the two of those would partner very well together to help keep this portion of canal clean.
Okay.
We have a couple representatives of, or at least frequent volunteers with the canal water cleaners here tonight.
Oh, nice.
So
I'd love to get some contact info.
I just
so
sent you a message on Facebook. I'd like to speak with you more about this.
Perfect. Sounds great.
Great. There you go. This trees there that are planning to be kept, and if I recall from last time, the property doesn't actually go up to the edge of the canal. There's a strip there that is owned by others. Is that correct?
So it's owned in fee by Coalition as a part of this, but there is an easement that Loxton Canals has over the top of it. So essentially, from what is the face of the existing building and what is going to be the face of the new building to the canal, Loxton Canals Parks, the Park Service has full access to that, and they maintain kind of the brick walkway that's there, and those trees and whatnot.
Okay. So this building is going to be somewhat larger than the one that's there now. Is that the idea?
It's generally in the same footprint. It's about the same. It's just going up in stories for additional square footage.
Mm-hmm. And the parking lot restoration, what would that include?
So we're ripping up the pavement that's out there. We're going to regrade, put down new bays, install the parking lot, and then obviously bring it into full compliance with stormwater management.
I think we looked at this extensively last time we approved it, and it still looks like a great project as far as I'm concerned. And I don't see any reason why we can't give a -3 on this, really.
I'll make a motion to issue a -3 determination.
Okay, motion made by Brad, seconded by Weston.
I'll second.
Further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you for coming in, and thank you for your patience and waiting. This had to be a long night for us.
Thank you very much. Have a great
Appreciate it.
evening.
Take care.
You too.
Good night. Next, we have an order of conditions extension requested by Marshall Field for the proprietors of the locks and canals of the Merrimack River, DEP file number 2060666. And this is Pawtucket Canal near Cayenne Street, which is very nearby, if not part of the gas company project off of Broadway there. I remember having a hard time finding this the first time around. And they had a problem with, well, an immediate response action problem some years ago. Are you representing this particular proponent?
Yes, I'm Billy Jo Golly. I'm with Anchor QEA and representing National Grid. Marshall Fields is owns the property, but National Grid has been doing the work on the property itself. So
So how long do you expect this work to continue?
the work that we're doing now is just monitoring activities to make sure that the cap and the boom system that were installed are maintained, and then doing any maintenance activities as needed to, repair the system.
Okay, so there's no change in the type of activity that's out there that we approved earlier.
That's correct. The original construction was back in 2010, which is when we installed the cap and the boom system. And since that time, we've been doing monitoring activities, as I said, to make sure that they are working appropriately, and then doing any maintenance activities as needed. So this would just be a continuation of the work that we've been doing for the last several years.
Okay, well, it sounds like important work, and are you requesting a 3-year extension?
That's what we requested. That's correct.
Okay, we have missed a few meetings in recent months, and I noticed the order has expired, but I think we have a little discretion here to continue that, considering that we had holiday times and whatever in between there. Do we have a motion on this, or do we have questions?
Just a quick question. Trying to refresh my memory. So what was the IRA? What are the contaminants concerned? Is this a containment remedy for something?
This is for non-aqueous phase liquid. It's a former manufactured gas plant.
Okay,
so coal tar.
Coal tar, okay.
Yep.
So basically capping the waste and then having a boom for containment for any sort of seepage?
Mm-hmm, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I see no reason why we can't extend the current order of conditions for a 3-year period.
Order to extend. Anyone else have a second?
I'll second that.
Kevin, further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that will be extended for 3 years, and thank you for coming in, and thank you for waiting so long.
No problem. Thank you for your time.
Have a good night.
Welcome.
Thanks, you too.
Okay, we're up to the minutes, and all eyes are focused on Mr. Lovely.
You guys are gonna have to read my edits.
Yeah, I don't have time. I didn't have time for that yet.
It's classic. I said it. Boy, we're not meeting for. Frank got the minutes out so quickly after December 9th, and it wasn't until 2 hours before tonight that I actually had a chance to go through them, and it took me about 2 hours. My suggestion is let's table them, give folks an opportunity to kind of review them, because I don't want to feel like I'm taking the liberty to edit what people said, but I did try to make them a little bit more concise and reflective of just kind of the outcomes from the call last time. And I think also since a lot of the minutes focus on kind of the outcomes from the discussion about the gas pipeline modification project, that'll probably be fresh in your minds when you go through it tonight. In light of the conversation we had. So my recommendation is let's kind of table the minutes until the next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, he said later tonight, guys.
I know, I noticed that, Bill.
Did I say later tonight?
You did, yeah.
Oh, God. Well, I'll tell you, we've been having
whoa, am I back in school?
we haven't had one of these marathon meetings in a long time, and maybe this is the penance we're paying for having short meetings. So yeah, 3 hours is a marathon. Yeah, till the next meeting. Sorry about that, folks.
Okay, so we'll bring that back at the next meeting for approval, and everybody take a look at them between now and then. Is there any further items for our agenda? If not, we're up to the word adjournment.
Wow.
So before adjourning, hey, thanks for being a special guest, Christine. Nice to have you back.
Thanks for having me.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you. It's good to be back.
You got a winner of a single meeting to attend.
Thanks. Thanks for that.
All right, with that, I'll offer a motion to adjourn.